Chapter 203. The Holy Grail Federation's countermeasure was to gather almost all biochemical origin ability users, the best field doctors, and various authoritative elites in the medical field. Everyone gathered together to come up with a strategy and research the antidote together. Shuiyan's expression seemed to have become fearful. People of your generation definitely can't imagine the scene back then. After the fallen cities were recovered, all the facilities in the sky and on the ground were destroyed. The land became a swamp for the devourer world. Although those monsters were chased away, the virus still spread in the air. Every day when you woke up, you would see human soldiers shooting at groups of monsters. However, those monsters themselves were humans who had mutated after being infected by the virus. Ding Meng was stunned. Isn't that killing one's own people? Shuiyan sighed and said, but the military had no choice. If they didn't kill them, the virus would spread even faster and wider. More people would be infected and mutated. In the end, they would either die or be assimilated by the devourer world. If this continued, the Federation would be destroyed sooner or later and completely become a land of monsters. Ding Meng nodded. Therefore, speeding up the research and development of the antidote was definitely the most important thing for the entire Holy Grail Federation at that time. Shuiyan sighed deeply. It's a pity that the medical elites gathered together were divided into two completely different camps at that time. Oh, Ding Meng was puzzled. Why were there still differences at that time? Shuiyan said, let's call one of the camps the positive camp for now. The positive camp strategy was to take the traditional route. They collected samples, observed the changes, simulated the environment, analyzed the data, designed the formula, and conducted clinical trials. After obtaining certification, they would mass produce the product. It might sound a little strenuous to you, but let me put it simply. This process is just like how we origin ability users cultivate. We accumulate points one by one, followed by cultivation techniques, martial arts techniques, and leveling up. It's all done by the book, step by step. Ding Meng frowned. Is there a problem? Shuiyan said, in theory, this step is the most correct, but it faces a very serious problem. It will take a very long time to develop an antidote. During this time, billions of humans will die. The higher-ups and researchers have the time, but the infected patients don't have the time. Take Little Red Riding Hood as an example. If they can't be cured within a few hours, humans will have to give up on them. However, the devouring world won't treat them as their own kind. Their final outcome will be tragic beyond your imagination. Ding Meng was also a little speechless. He continued to ask, then what is the opposing party strategy? Shuiyan said, the opposing side strategy is to take an unusual route. After collecting all kinds of samples and materials, they'll develop it as quickly as possible. The premise is that they'll conduct experiments on living people. Ding Meng was shocked again. This is too crazy, isn't it? And as far as I know, the Holy Grail Federation's laws don't allow that, right? It goes against the spirit of humanitarianism. Shuiyan nodded. Actually, as origin ability doctors, how can we not know these things? However, the cruel environment back then was like this. Every second you hesitated, thousands of people would die. There were as many as 138 types of poison weapons in the devourer world, and we only managed to decipher the principles of 26 types. It took us 8 months to decipher these 26 types of antidotes. I don't dare to imagine if there will be any normal humans left in the Federation when all 138 types of antidotes are produced. Perhaps only the army and researchers are left. Ordinary humans have long been turned into ashes. If we follow the opposing side's method to develop an antidote, what's the point? Moreover, we can't do anything about a powerful high-end poison like Little Red Riding Hood. Ding Meng took a deep breath. He had experienced life and death, but he had never experienced such a large scale of survival and death. Just like on the day of the solar eclipse at Black Gold Base, he felt uncomfortable just thinking about how he had not seen with his own eyes tens of thousands of workers die in the mouths of monsters. If he had lived in Shuiyan's era as a doctor, how would he feel when he saw billions of humans turn into monsters? In the end, they either turned into poisonous pus or died under the guns of their own people. Just as Shuiyan had said, no matter how you thought about it. It was impossible to imagine. After a long time, Ding Meng spread his hands and said, "All right, even if we want to test it on living people, we still need people, right?" Xu Yin revealed a serious expression. Back then, when this news was leaked, a total of more than 86,000 Origin Ability users from the Holy Grail Federation volunteered to be used in the virus research within a month. Most of them were Origin Ability users, but there were also a small number of soldiers and war venerables. There were even 5 war generals and 1 war monarch. They rushed over from all over the country overnight in order to develop an antidote as soon as possible. They were willing to sacrifice themselves for the sake of all the citizens of the Holy Grail Federation. Ding Meng was deeply shocked. It was a long time before he was able to speak. There were even war generals and war monarchs who went. They were willing to go themselves? Xu Yin said solemnly, "Under normal circumstances, no one would be willing to go. Who knows how much a price an Origin Ability user would have to pay to become a war monarch?" However, they were willing to test the poison. One of the reasons is that Origin Ability users are naturally resistant to poison. The higher a person's Origin Ability user level is, the stronger their resistance to poison will be. This kind of person's research value is extremely high. Then what about the other reason? Ding Meng couldn't help but ask. Xu Yin's expression became solemn and pious. "I remember that War Monarch said something when he entered the poison gas research lab." Ding Meng asked, "What did he say?" Xu Yin said word by word, "The mission of us Origin Ability users isn't to go into battle to kill the enemy, nor is it to pursue fame and fortune, nor is it to achieve great feats. Rather, it's to fight for those who can't fight." At this moment, Ding Meng felt as if something was stuck in his throat, and the blood in his body seemed to be heating up. He couldn't say a single word because he knew that if he were in these people's shoes, he might not have the courage to do so. However, at this moment, he thought of many people and things. Those masters of the T-shaped claw blade, those big brothers who bravely advanced, and Sleeman and Gulaga, who were protecting the refugees on planet KV-303. Weren't these people the same? They had always been fighting for those who couldn't fight. This was what Xiao AI had explained to him before. When value and rationality prevailed, humans would give their all and even sacrifice themselves for a certain person, a certain matter, or a certain goal. Sometimes, this trait would cause irreversible disasters, but at other times, it would also create indescribable miracles. After a long time, Ding Meng was finally able to speak. "It was only then that I found out that the Holy Grail Federation managed to develop an antidote in just 2 short years. It quickly drove the Devourer world out of the Zerodal star field completely. So, it was this group of people who were silently contributing." Xu Yin's tone became downcast again. "It's a pity that most of these Origin Ability users didn't survive." Ding Meng asked why. Xu Yin said, "Because in the early stages of the research, we took a lot of detours. As a result, many Origin Ability users couldn't withstand the effects of the poison and died in the end." Ding Meng said, "So, in the later stages, you guys came up with a solution and successfully developed an antidote?" Xu Yin shook her head and said, "Not in the later stages. Because there weren't enough volunteers, the government protested to the Federation's higher-ups many times. We were under a lot of pressure from the higher-ups, and the research was interrupted several times." Ding Meng said, "Then how did you guys survive?" Xu Yin did not answer him directly this time. Instead, she slowly got up and walked to the tatama mat. She looked at the mural on the wall with an indescribable expression and did not speak for a long time. Ding Meng finally understood. "Dr. Zhu is someone from the opposing camp?" Xu Yin replied calmly. "He's the one who proposed the Anyway strategy. He's the overall person in charge of this project and serves as the chief research medical officer." Ding Meng also stood up and silently looked at the righteous-looking man in the mural. He sighed. "If I were Dr. Zhu, I might have joined the opposing camp as well." Xu Yin turned around and silently looked at him. "I also know that Little Yin wouldn't bring an outsider to our place for no reason. Mr. Ding Meng, you and my husband are very similar in some ways." Ding Meng sighed and said, I can't be compared to Dr. Zhu. I'm not as capable as he is. I'm just curious about how the antidote was finally developed. Shuiyin took 2 steps forward and said in an unusually calm tone. After the research was interrupted, this group of doctors decided to test the poison themselves in order to develop the antidote as soon as possible. They even persuaded their families and children to join the team of drug testers. In the end, they developed all 138 types of antidotes. Ding Meng was so shocked that he was speechless. He did not think that these people were crazy. Instead, he felt that these people were really... He could not describe it because he could not do it. It was also because he could not do it that he could feel the greatness of these people. Ding Meng had always respected those who dared to sacrifice themselves. He silently walked forward and bowed slightly to the mural to show his respect. I didn't expect that the peace of the Holy Grail Federation for 70 years was obtained this way. Ding Meng could not help but sigh. Unfortunately, the peaceful and beautiful life did not come. The nightmare has just begun, Meng Yin answered him coldly. Oh, Ding Meng was shocked again. Why? Shu Yin sighed and said, although the war has ended, things have not calmed down. Because the live human experiments were completely exposed by the media, it led to a large-scale protest by the people. They asked the Federation's higher-ups to severely punish those inhumane medical scholars who opposed the war. Ding Meng was stunned. He really could not understand this. If it weren't for the great sacrifice of these opposing doctors, these people who protested might have died long ago. They were the ones who saved them, so why are they still protesting? Meng Yin gritted her teeth and said, it's not that these people are ignorant. Someone is instigating them because Uncle Zhu and the others contributed too much. Some people are jealous. Ding Meng immediately reacted. Those people who supported the war? Shuiyin said, there are many factors involved. The thoughts of the higher-ups are different from those of ordinary people. Ding Meng nodded. He did not understand the complicated game of politics, but it was easy to understand if he looked at it from another perspective. It was like a group of people going out to hunt. Before the prey appeared, everyone would definitely be united. However, after the prey was caught, everyone's thoughts would change. They would think of ways to share more of the prey or even take it all for themselves. Chapter 204. Shuiyin said, actually, the protests are secondary. The real side effect is that the group of people who tested the poison and survived in the end began to mutate. As you can see, I'm one of them. Ding Meng was startled and said, didn't you guys develop an antidote? Also, you're all origin energy users. How could you mutate? Shuiyin explained, the mutated people are divided into 2 types. One type is benign. They were able to completely resist and integrate with the poison during the process of testing the poison. In the end, they became the so-called mutation-type origin energy users. Ding Meng hesitated and said, the other type is definitely malignant. Shuiyin nodded with a heavy expression. This type of people didn't just fail to resist the poison. Instead, during the process of testing the poison, they were contaminated with too much of the strange poison from the devourer world, which formed an even more powerful new poison in their bodies. The composition of the new poison is even more complicated, and the changes are even more terrifying. In addition, the principle of the devourer world's poison is completely different from ours. Therefore, with our current medical standards, unless the person is an extremely high-level origin energy user, the others have basically all mutated maliciously. Meng Yin gritted her teeth and said, Uncle Zhu and the others contributed so much to the Federation, but in the end, the military still wants to quarantine them. Ding Meng sighed. I'm afraid it's not as simple as quarantine. If my guess is correct, most of them might have been secretly killed. They can't even work as laborers. He had such a guess because of the black gold base. Normal humans like Little Four, who were not tall and covered in strange fur, could not even be accepted by mainstream society, let alone these people who had already started to mutate. Sometimes, humanity's greatest enemy was not some alien civilization, but themselves. Humans were more terrifying than any other alien race. Shuiyin nodded and said, Mr. Ding Ming's guess is correct. Most of these people are medical scholars and origin energy users, as well as their children. My husband died while trying to protect them from the Federation. It was also because of Mr. Ming's military friends that the rest of us were able to survive in the universe. Ding Ming sighed. So you fled to this place, Shuyan said. At first, we didn't find this place because everyone's mutation speed was very slow. However, after our research, we found that everyone's genes have changed and are deteriorating in an unknown direction. Not only will it change us, but it will also spread to the next generation. For the time being, we don't have a way to cure it completely. We can only use the ancient method of fighting poison with poison to delay its deterioration. Ding Ming finally understood. Pandora's poisonous gas can do that. Meng Yin explained, Planet V4's poison can indeed be slowed down, but the density is too high. We can't resist it either. We can only use silver core stones to create an isolation force field to dilute the poison in this space and slow down the deterioration as much as possible. Ding Ming let out a long sigh. He finally understood why Meng Yin had said that silver core stones could save people. It was because of this. Moreover, the silver core stone in Meteor City had been tempered by the power of nature, and the energy within it had a special effect on the environment. Once it was brought here, these people's chances of survival would undoubtedly increase by a lot. No wonder this silver core stone's fluctuations are so weak. So you wanted to steal the one in Meteor City and replace it? Ding Ming looked at her coldly. Meng Yin said helplessly, This silver core stone has been used for 70 years since it was created. Aunt Shuyan has already calculated that its remaining energy can support this place for another 5 years at most, but I don't have time to wait any longer, even though I know that the celestial wolf core is not to be trifled with. Ding Ming said coldly, Even without the celestial wolf core, you won't be able to take away that silver core stone. I tested it in the energy warehouse back then, and its energy is too great. You don't have a spaceship or a spaceship with such a large capacity, so I advised you to dispel those unrealistic thoughts. Meng Yin also sighed. She was speechless. Shuyan sighed. Mr. Ding Ming, you don't have to blame Xiao Yan. After we arrived on Planet V4, we've been actively researching ways to detoxify the poison. Unfortunately, no matter what method we used, we couldn't cure the poison. We even tried using the latest medical cabin developed by the Saint Federation in recent years, but to no avail. Xiao Yan did everything she could for the people who were still alive, and she paid a huge price for it. She did have her own difficulties because there were originally more than 20 origin ability users with a certain level of combat ability like her, but after going out to search for all kinds of methods and materials, they all died in space one after another. In the end, only Xiao Yan was left. The others not only didn't have any combat ability, but they didn't even have the basic ability to move. I had no choice but to teach her the Phantom Fantasy technique, giving her the ability to mimic the appearance of others, and also to ensure her safety outside. Ding Ming nodded. He now completely understood the whole story. Why was Nightmare a godly thief? Why did she always steal valuable things? Not only was she looking for a way to detoxify the poison, but she was also doing it for the sake of the people here. People like Xiao Wei also needed to eat, drink, and sleep, so they also needed resources to sustain themselves. Just like the refugees on KV-303, Silman accepted missions, received bounties, and bought supplies, while Nightmare could only rely on stealing. Shui sighed. But Mr. Ding Ming, I can guarantee you that Xiao Yan will not harm the innocent unless she has no other choice. Ding Ming nodded. But you still haven't found a way to detoxify the poison, right? Shuyan and Nightmare couldn't help but look at each other. Then, they lowered their heads and sighed softly. They had exhausted every method they could think of over the years, but in the end, all that awaited them was despair. Shuyan muttered, We are becoming something that even we don't know what we are. Everyone has tried their best. Perhaps death is the best outcome. Sometimes, I even feel that death is the happiest. Ding Ming said, I'm not the mutated poison spirit that you think I am, so I can't save you. Meng Yin suddenly raised her head and stepped forward with an agitated expression. But Mr. Ting, your blood can even detoxify the grade 3 Little Red Riding Hood and the source devouring agent. If you're not the mutated poison spirit, then what are you? Xu Yin immediately stopped her from acting rashly. She gently said, Little Yin, don't be rude. Mutated spirit origin energy might not be the only antidote. There are many secret manuals in the world of origin ability cultivators, and there are countless mysteries in the vast universe. Mr. Dingming naturally has his own unique abilities. Meng Yin immediately understood that Aunt Xuyan was hinting at her not to pry into other people's privacy. At this moment, Meng Yin fell to her knees in front of Ding Meng with tears in her eyes. Mr. Ting, I beg of you, please save my family. I beg of you. They're in too much pain. They don't want to die, and they don't deserve to die. You have a way, don't you? Xiaowei also fell to her knees. I beg of you, Mr. Ting, please save us. Ding Meng frowned and said, What are you doing? Get up first. When he said this, Meng Yin could only stand up, but her expression was still unwilling. She gritted her teeth and said, As long as Mr. Ting can save us, Meng Yin is willing to swear an oath on the spot that she will follow you for the rest of her life. I'm willing to do anything for you. Ding Meng was silent. He was not hesitating, but communicating telepathically. Can I cure the poison in their bodies? Little Rascal said, In theory, it should be possible to cure it. The devouring world's poison is indeed a very powerful existence for humans. But if the cave virus can't be cured, then only the advanced civilizations in the universe have that kind of poison. How can the devouring world be considered an advanced civilization? Xiao AI said, Although that's the theory, there's no data to support it. The most important problem is that they've been poisoned for too long, as long as half a century. The deterioration rate is very high. According to my tests, even if it can be cured, there's a great risk in changing their genes. The effects are unknown. You should decide on this matter yourself. A CT-5570. We can't provide you with any decision-making opinions, Ding Meng nodded, then raised his head and said to Meng Yin, I can understand how you feel. I've said that I'll help you. Meng Yin immediately revealed a pleasantly surprised expression. We'll never forget Mr. Ting's great kindness. If Mr. Ting has any requests, just let us know. Ding Meng said in a deep voice, I'll say the ugly words first. Even if I want to help you, there's a great risk. If anything happens, don't blame me. Xu Yin said seriously, Mr. Ding Meng, please don't worry. We'll bear all the consequences. Ding Meng said, I have 2 requests. Didn't you say that no one can see your true face? I'm very curious about what your true face looks like. Meng Yin did not say anything else and immediately withdrew her Lu Fei appearance. After a burst of purple smoke, a brand new appearance appeared in front of Ding Meng. At this moment, Meng Yin was wearing a long blue and black classical robe. Her head was covered by a hood, so her true face could not be seen. However, Nightmare quickly took off the hood and lifted the robe. Ding Meng finally saw clearly that Meng Yin was like a combination of 2 people. The left side of her face was clearly a woman's face, while the right side was a man's face. Her body was also divided into 2 completely different parts. The left side indeed had the characteristics of a woman's body, but the right side was a completely dried-up corpse. The reddish-brown skin emitted a strong stench, but overall, it did not look like a hermaphrodite. It was a monster from hell. Ding Meng somewhat understood why she said that she was a woman, but also not a woman. Just as Xu Yin said, they were becoming something that even they did not know what they were. Meng Yin put on her clothes again and put on her hood. Her voice became abnormally pained. My parents have long since become unknown world-devouring monsters. For the sake of everyone's safety, I killed them with my own hands. They named me Meng Yin when they were alive, which means the face of dream. They hoped that one day I would be able to become a real human again. Xu Yin closed her eyes. She had clearly seen too many similar things, and she was not even willing to open her eyes. She could not help but sigh. Little Yin hasn't completely deteriorated. Origin energy is supporting half of her body. At least this half still has the characteristics of a human. Ding Meng also sighed. If you hadn't practiced that phantom fantasy technique, I reckon that even those black market merchants would treat you like a monster once you flew out of Planet V4. He paused for a moment, then suddenly stretched out his hand and shouted, "Bring me a cup." Chapter 205. The cup was quickly placed in Ding Meng's hands. Of course, it wasn't a real cup. Instead, it was a small crystal bottle that Meng Yin usually used to store medicine. It had excellent sealing and insulation properties. Ding Meng secretly gathered his origin energy in his palm. He gently sliced open his palm with his claw blade and covered the mouth of the bottle with his palm. In an instant, the bottle was filled to the brim with blood. This time, the blood contained a large amount of pure origin energy. Even though the bottle of blood looked dark red from the outside, there were faint specks of gold within. It was definitely not the blood of an ordinary person. Ding Meng placed the bottle in front of Meng Yin and said coldly, "There's poison in my blood as well. I don't know if it can cure the poison in your body. You might be able to recover after drinking it, but it might also cause problems immediately after drinking it. Now, it's up to you whether you dare to drink it or not." Meng Yin hesitated when she heard this. It wasn't that she didn't trust Ding Meng. On the contrary, it was because she trusted Ding Meng that she knew that he wasn't spouting nonsense. She wasn't afraid of dying. What she was truly afraid of was that if she died after drinking it, then all hope for the hundreds of people on Planet V4 would be lost. Who would search for them in space in the future? Just as she was hesitating, Xiao Wei walked over. "Mr. Ting, can you let me try? I'm not afraid." Ding Meng looked at him. "You're really not afraid?" Xiao Wei's 3 eyes shone with determination. "I'm really not afraid. I can die, but Sister Meng Yin can't." "All right, then follow my instructions." Ding Meng took out a small knife and cut open a small wound on Xiao Wei's shoulder. He pressed his palm against the wound. He wasn't doing this to cure the poison, but rather to follow Xiao AI's instructions. She and Little Rascal could detect the microscopic changes in Xiao Wei's body through Ding Meng's contact. Ding Meng closed his eyes, circulated his origin energy, and ordered in a low voice, "Drink." Xiao Wei did not hesitate to raise his head and gulp down the blood. A strange change occurred 10 seconds later. Xiao Wei's body began to emit large amounts of white steam, as if he was evaporating. Xu Yin and Ding Meng exchanged glances. Even they didn't know what was going on. However, Xiao AI had provided Ding Meng with a view of the microscopic world. Ding Meng could clearly see that Xiao Wei's blood was filled with all sorts of strange molecules. These molecules were blue, purple, and black. This was definitely not the structure of a normal human's blood. Even the blood of an origin ability user shouldn't be like this. This was because these molecules were glued together in a very complicated structure, just like the seaweed at the bottom of the sea. They intertwined and connected with each other, becoming one entity. It was very difficult to separate them. Presumably, this was the poison that had accumulated for a long time. Looking at the fine blood molecules that were evaporating, they were continuously spreading to the limbs and bones. However, they were not transforming the human body. Instead, they were destroying the major organs, as if they were trying to fuse these organs into something else. Little Rascal explained, "According to the database, the biggest characteristic of the Devourer's poison is assimilation. It could transform an alien race into one of its own. There's no doubt about it." As the K-virus entered Xiao Wei's blood, the pure white diamonds in his blood rushed in like an army of steel. The poison was vaporized in the blink of an eye like water droplets meeting lava. It couldn't resist at all. In Xuan's nightmare demon's eyes, Xiao Wei was firmly held down by Ding Meng. He was so nervous that he didn't dare to move. However, blue, purple, and black smoke were rising from all over his body. The reddish-brown skin below Xiao Wei's neck was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. His mummified body gradually became soft, supple, and full of vitality. About 5 minutes later, Ding Meng withdrew his hand and opened his eyes. He asked, "How do you feel now?" Xiao Wei could no longer hold back his joy. He spread his arms and inspected his body. He sounded like he was screaming, "I don't feel pain anymore. I don't feel itchy anymore. I don't feel like I'm going to die anymore." I'm fine. I'm really fine. It seemed that even he couldn't believe that the strange poison that had tormented him for so many years had been eradicated just like that. Then he suddenly woke up. Without saying a word, he immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed. His forehead was bleeding from the kowtow, but his mouth still kept thanking. "Thank you, Mr. Ding Meng. Thank you, Mr. Ding Meng." Ding Meng frowned and said, "Get up." Xiao Wei was completely loyal to Ding Meng. He stood obediently as soon as he got up. Ding Meng said, "You haven't fully recovered yet." Xiao Wei was stunned again. Ding Meng said, "Your 3 eyes and dwarf-like body are the result of a genetic problem. I'll only help you get rid of the poison in your body. Remember, you need a 7th-generation angel medical pod from the Holy Grail Federation. You can only fully recover if you use its genetic repair function. Of course, I don't have to worry about that." He obviously didn't mean to say this. Little rascal Xiao AI had taught him to say this. He could easily find the method to fully recover after comparing the information in the database. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Xu Yin and Meng Yin knelt down at the same time. Meng Yin was even crying. "Mr. Ding, I will never forget your great kindness. I've said that I'm willing to follow you forever." Xu Yin was also so emotional that her entire body was trembling. "Mr. Ting, I really don't know how to thank you." Ding Meng helped her up. "Auntie Xu Yin, it's more appropriate for you to call me Little Ding. You're my senior in terms of age, and you're my senior in terms of origin energy. I don't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as you, so I can't accept your kneeling. Get up, all of you." Only after he spoke did the 3 of them stand up. Ding Meng asked, "How many people are left here?" Xu Yin hurriedly replied, "We had a total of 4,655 people when we fled here. Only 304 people are left now." Ding Meng sighed and said, "There are still a few issues that need to be resolved." Xu Yin said, "Mr. Ting, please speak." Ding Meng said, "First, you guys will have to think of a way to get the 7th-generation Angel military medical cabin." Meng Yin could definitely understand what he meant by this. It was impossible for the military medical cabin to be sold on the market. Only the military, the royal family, and the upper echelons had the right to distribute it. Meanwhile, the 7th-generation Angel was a high-end product that the Holy Grail Federation had only developed in recent years. Regardless of whether they stole it or snatched it, they had to get their hands on it. Meng Yin said, "Mr. Ting, don't worry. As long as you resolve the problem of the poison, the other issues won't be a problem." Ding Meng said, "Second, there are 300 people here. Not all of them can be treated with blood alone. I'll also have to decide on a treatment plan based on the degree of poisoning. This will take time." Xu Yin could understand this point. Over 300 people would require at least 300 vials of blood at the very least. No matter how strong an origin ability user's self-recovery and hematopoietic abilities were, it was impossible for them to release so much blood all at once. Ding Meng would definitely have to take it slow. Xu Yin said with a serious expression, "Mr. Ding Meng, don't worry. I can't guarantee anything else, but I guarantee that we have a unique method to provide you with your stamina, nutrition, energy, and origin energy." Ding Meng waved his hand and said, "There's no need for that. You should worry more about yourselves. The third issue is that from now on, Annie Xu Yin, it's best that you increase the use of the Silver Core Stone's energy so that this force field will gradually become a normal space that completely isolates the poison gas from the outside. As your people gradually recover, this space that has diluted the poison gas will slowly become harmful to your bodies. As the Silver Core Stone's energy is depleted, you definitely won't be able to stay on planet V for any longer. If you trust me, I can take you to a place." The place he was thinking of was naturally planet KV-303. Although the environment there was terrible, it was practically heaven compared to this place. He had reason to believe that Xu Yin and the others were extremely eager to return to the real human world. Ding Meng continued, "Last question. I've used up too much energy on my way here from Meteor City. I need time to recover." Meng Yin said, "That's not a problem at all. Mr. Ting, although we're on the poison barrier planet, all the origin ability users here are still fully equipped. The sensory and nutrition cabins are all Ding Ming immediately interrupted her. I don't need those. I need to recover outside the force field. Shui Yin and Meng Yin were both puzzled, but they quickly understood. Ding Ming could even cure everyone's poison. Why would he be afraid of the poison gas outside? He definitely had some kind of secret method to extract the poison. It wouldn't be good if they saw it. Shui Yin smiled and said, That's not a problem. I'll arrange for someone to build you a place to rest. Ding Ming said, That's not necessary. I just need some time to recuperate. No one will disturb me. When I'm done, I'll naturally inform you and come to treat everyone. This, Shui Yin was a little hesitant. Ding Ming frowned and said, Is there a problem? Shui Yin said, That's not a problem. It's just that you're making us feel very ashamed. You're an honored guest that little Yin invited back with great difficulty, and you're also willing to do so much for us. We have to repay you in some way, right? If you need to recover, why don't you try out the results of our research? This poison barrier planet also has its own unique good stuff. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been able to live for so long. Is that so? Ding Ming hesitated. It would be good to give it a try. As long as it was something that could help with his cultivation, there was no need to refuse. Sure, Ding Ming agreed very straightforwardly. Shuyan immediately turned her head and said, Xiao Wei, go and inform Mr. Ren to take out the inventory list. If Mr. Ding Ming needs anything, please follow Mr. Ding Ming's instructions. Yes, Xiao Wei practically ran out in joy. Chapter 206. In the dense forest. This forest was spread out from the giant tree. Giant branches crisscrossed each other, and there were as many vines as a cow's hair. The branches of the giant tree stretched horizontally through the air, and there were all kinds of strange plants growing on them. The ground was covered with dense needle-like grass and all kinds of barbed shrubs. From afar, it didn't look eerie because all the plants emitted different colors of light, rendering this place a colorful world. However, at the same time, there was a faint mist-like gas rising from the ground. It was true that beautiful things were often poisonous. Ding Ming was strolling in this colorful forest, followed by an old man who was staggering. He looked older than Shuyan, but there was no part of his body that was intact. His arms, thighs, chest, and shoulders were covered with finger-sized wounds. Not only were grayish-brown pus seeping out of the wounds, but there were also black tentacles extending from them. It was as if a terrible monster was being nurtured in his body and would break out at any time. Ding Ming didn't know much about pharmacology, but when he saw the symptoms, he knew that this person's condition had deteriorated quite rapidly, and he definitely didn't have much time left. This mutant called Ren Tianlan was the Mr. Ren Tianlan that Xiao Wei had invited to accompany Ding Ming. He was the storekeeper. The resources in this place were extremely precious. To be entrusted with such an important task, he must be someone that Shui entrusted a lot. However, Ding Ming didn't dare to underestimate him. Although this Mr. Ren Tianlan was severely poisoned, his body still emitted a strong aura from time to time. He must have been a profound origin energy user before he was poisoned, and the fact that he could survive until now after being poisoned was probably because the origin energy in his body played a huge role in slowing down the process. Mr. Ren Tianlan, I'm a little tired. Let's sit down and rest for a while. Ding Ming sat down on the green grass with a hint of white. Ren Tianlan was carrying an extremely heavy cabinet-style backpack. Originally, Ding Ming wanted to carry it himself, but Ren Tianlan firmly refused, saying that Ding Ming was a distinguished guest and that he had to carry it himself no matter what. However, with his damaged body, walking was a problem, let alone carrying such a big backpack. Now that they were far away from the super big tree camp, the poisonous gas around them was getting thicker and thicker. After sitting down, Ren Tianlan coughed violently. What he coughed up was not blood, but tiny particles wrapped in pus. He had long wanted to lie on the grass and rest. Fortunately, Ding Ming took the initiative to stop him. He could not help but look at him with gratitude. Little brother Ding, you should be 25 years old this year, right? Although he had been poisoned, his perception was still there. Based on his past experience and common sense, the energy fluctuations coming from Ding Ming's body told him that this young man was at least an advanced heat warrior. A 25-year-old advanced warrior had a bright future ahead of him. It was no wonder that Xu Yin had said that this Mr. Ding Meng was an important guest that Meng Yin had invited back. Little Yin was really lucky to be able to make such a friend. Of course, Ding Meng wouldn't tell him his real age. According to the standards of the Federal Empire, most people in their 20s were origin ability users. People from influential families had access to good cultivation environments and resources. At most, they were beginner warriors. Even the fiercer ones were at most intermediate warriors. However, the news of a 20-year-old beginner origin energy war supremacy was far too shocking. No one would believe it. Ding Meng smiled and asked, "How old are you, Mr. Rin?" Rin Tianlan sighed. I'm old. I'm 127 years old. I'm already satisfied that I've been able to live until now." He wasn't sighing because his life was about to come to an end, but rather because he didn't really believe that Ding Meng could cure him of the poison. However, when he saw Xiao Wei jumping around in the camp, he was still a little skeptical. Ding Meng asked, "How long have you been poisoned, Mr. Ren?" A bitter smile appeared on Ren Tianlan's face. "I was one of the earliest volunteers." Ding Meng was slightly surprised. The earliest volunteers had been around 70 years ago. At that time, Ren Tianlan should have been in his 40s or 50s, but his origin energy cultivation was already so high. One could only imagine how powerful Ren Tianlan would have been if it weren't for that war. Ding Meng couldn't help but sigh. "Mr. Ren, you should be a war supremacy, right?" Ren Tianlan said. "I won't hide it from little brother Ding. When I rushed to the front lines, I was already a mid-level war supremacy." Ding Meng was immediately filled with respect. But Mr. Ren was still willing to be a volunteer. Ren Tianlan laughed. "What am I? Even someone like Brother Long Yu went. I'm not even worth mentioning." Long Yu was the war supremacy who had joined the ranks of the volunteers. Ren Tianlan said sadly, "Unfortunately, Brother Long Yu tested the highest level of Little Red Riding Hood poison. In the end, he still didn't survive." Ding Meng was also a little sad, but he still raised his head and said, "Mr. Run, you don't have to be sad. What you've done is worthy of respect." Run Tianlan sighed and said, "I should have died long ago. I've been enduring it, not because I don't have the courage to kill myself. I just want to see the day when Little Yin and the others recover. Only then will I be able to rest assured and leave." Ding Meng muttered, "Sometimes God wants you to live, and there must be a reason for it. Mr. Rin, why don't you think so? After you recover, your group of people will still be waiting for you to take care of them. I heard from Aunt Shuyin that most of you who have survived until now are the descendants of those doctors and volunteers." "Yes, most of them are the descendants of doctors." Ren Tianlan nodded with a proud look on his face. "I'm not bragging, but these people have inherited their father's talent in medicine. If they can really return to the Federation, they won't be comparable to those mediocre people in the Federation now." He paused and stared at Ding Meng with sharp eyes. "Little brother Ding, can you really cure these strange poisons?" Ding Meng suddenly raised his hand, and a small crystal bottle appeared in Ren Tianlan's hand. "Mr. Ren Tianlan, the poison in your body is too deep. I can't say for sure that it can be cured in a short period of time. Take this first." Ding Meng sighed. He wasn't sighing because Ren Tianlan was too deeply poisoned, but because his cultivation was still too shallow. Little Rascal had already explained to him that if he cultivated his origin energy deeper and purer, the effects of the cave virus would also increase. If he really reached the level of a warlord, he wouldn't even need to use blood. He could save these people with just a breath. Ren Tianlan studied the blood in the bottle with a doubtful look on his face. "You use this to cure Little Wei?" Ding Meng ignored him. "Mr. Ren, I've been running around fighting for days, and my body is pretty much exhausted. I need a rest for a while. I don't even need to tell you when I'm done. You'll come find me." After saying this, Ding Meng sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. It seemed that he didn't want to say anything else. Ren Tianlan looked at him suspiciously. In the end, he gently placed his backpack on the grass and limped away. After he left, Ding Meng was free from external disturbances. He quickly entered a meditative state. The battle in Meteor City had really exhausted his vitality when he collided with Chung Rifeng's Origin Steel Shield. At the last moment, when the spaceship was about to take off, Ding Ming had used the Origin Smelting Essence and used the Zhao's solitary sword that teacher Zhao had taught him to deal a blow to the enemy. The result of this blow was that the 7th Origin that he had just constructed was damaged. The first 6 Origin points were also damaged to varying degrees. The first thing he had to do now was to restore the 7th Origin point. The first 6 Origin points were still manageable, but even if they were restored, he wouldn't be able to reconstruct the 7th Origin point. With Ding Ming's current strength, he was still far from being able to reconstruct the 7th Origin point. In Meteor City, he had used the energy of the Silver Core Stone to forcefully break through. However, now that the Origin Smelting Essence was close to nothingness, he had to reconstruct it. This was also Little Rascal's suggestion. The poisonous gas on planet V4 was very heavy. This time, he could fuse the Origin energy and the poisonous gas together, which would result in twice the result with half the effort. More importantly, the materials stolen from the Celestial Wolf Regiment and the bag of cultivation items provided by Shuyin and the others could be put to good use. The dazzling gold backpack was mainly filled with super polymeric nutrient solution with a capacity of 800 plus deca. The label indicated that it was produced by a company called Jindi from the Holy Grail Federation. With Ding Ming's current strength, his need for nutrient solution was definitely not great. However, that didn't mean that he didn't need it at all. Once he put in a long period of cultivation, the nutrient solution would be consumed like flowing water. The key problem here was that the enhancement products were always mass-produced on an industrial assembly line. They would more or less contain traces of impurities and chemicals. They wouldn't cause any harm to Origin energy users, but as one's level increased, one's strength increased, and one's cultivation time increased, the side effects would slowly become apparent. First of all, the body's resistance to drugs would increase, and enhancement products would have almost no effect. This was also why Ding Ming hadn't taken those energy-gathering fluid, acceleration fluid, or synthesis fluid from the Celestial Wolf Regiment's warehouse. In contrast, the advantages of purely natural cultivation resources were more prominent. In Ren Tianlan's backpack, there were 2 things that had aroused Ding Ming's interest: crystal berry and cedar leaf. This crystal berry was the raw material for the crystal berry concentrate used in the Green Arrow Base's sensing hall. It looked like a blue ping pong ball, but this fruit couldn't be eaten directly. The energy it contained was simply unbearable for ordinary people. Usually, it had to be diluted and broken down. Other energy was added in a certain proportion, and finally, it was condensed and became a precious cultivation resource for Origin energy users. The reason why Ren Tianlan and the others dared to consume it directly was because it could greatly alleviate the pain caused by the poison. Ding Ming suddenly remembered that Salman had once mentioned to him that even in the Holy Grail Federation, the crystal berry concentrate was considered a rare enhancement product because its raw material was very difficult to obtain. Perhaps the raw material for the crystal berry concentrate of the Green Arrow Regiment was sold to them by Meng Yan. After all, the Green Arrow Base was considered a mercenary regiment that was relatively close to this place. However, how could Poison Hazard Star produce such a magical fruit? For a moment, Ding Ming couldn't think of a reason. Chapter 207. The crystal berries Ren Tianlan had given Ding Ming weren't ordinary. According to Ren Tianlan's description, the crystal berries were also divided into different grades, which could be determined by their color. Sky blue was the standard color, and this kind of fruit would ripen once every 12 months. Next would be dark blue, and the ripening time would double, so it could only be harvested once every 2 years. The darker the color, the higher the grade, and the longer the ripening time. Normal Origin ability users couldn't even eat sky blue fruits directly, and mutants here who were the least poison needed dark blue crystal berries to resist the poison. Ren Tianlan had a total of 5 crystal berries in his backpack. They were actually purple with a hint of black, and they were as large as a fist. They were clearly the fruit of many years of growth, and presumably, they were also the most precious items in the warehouse. If it weren't for Ding Meng's hope of curing the poison, how could such precious fruits be given to an outsider for no good reason? Ding Meng didn't hold back. He picked one up and took a bite. The fruit didn't taste very good, and it was so bitter that his tongue felt numb. But when he thought about how this thing could be helpful for cultivation, he swallowed it down in 2 or 3 bites, looking a bit like he was swallowing a raw egg. He quickly felt the changes in his body. It was as if his tongue had gone numb, and he couldn't feel anything in his body. He felt as light as a feather, as if his soul was flying out of his body. This was especially true when he was sitting cross-legged. He felt as if his entire body was 10 meters above the ground, swaying lazily. It was comfortable, but he felt as if he had turned into a puff of smoke that could dissipate into nothingness at any time. This kind of extreme comfort was actually a bit frightening. Xiao AI immediately ordered, "Activate your origin energy." The first origin point quickly began to rotate, and as soon as it did, he felt as if his body had become much more substantial. Little Rascal said, "This is far from enough. Speed it up." And so, Ding Meng simply rotated the second and third origin points simultaneously. The feeling of smoke was gone, but his soul was still there, floating as if he had no center of gravity. This time, there was no need for the 2 girls to remind him. The 6 points were all fired, and at the same time, he condensed the mirror between any 3 points. Although he felt that his body had become much heavier, he still seemed to be floating in the air and did not return to his original body on the ground. Damn, this crystal berry is so powerful. Ding Meng absorbed the origin energy while secretly activating the polygonal body. He immediately knew how powerful this fruit was. Back then, when he was rebuilding the origin and operating the prism in the Green Arrow subbase, even soaking in the crystal berry concentrate had greatly relieved the pressure that was as heavy as Mount Tai. But now, not only did he not feel any pain, he even felt that his soul had dropped a lot and was hanging in the air half a meter above the ground, trying to shrink back into his body. Xiao AI said in a deep voice, 6 points, speed up the operation, condense the entire mirror image, and begin strengthening. Without the painful hindrance from before, the polygonal mirror image condensed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, a diamond mirror image was formed in his body. Then, with a ding-ling sound, it shattered, and the atomized energy spread throughout his body. There was no hesitation in Xiao AI's voice. Time, 9 minutes, 3 seconds. Continue accelerating. Ding Meng was shocked when he heard this. This time was at least a third shorter than the last time. The crystal berry's effect was too damn good. As the polygonal mirror image continued to shatter, Xiao AI's voice also continued to accelerate. Time, 8 minutes, 26 seconds. Continue accelerating. Time, 7 minutes, 32 seconds. Continue accelerating. Time, 6 minutes, 48 seconds. Continue accelerating. Time, 6 minutes, 16 seconds. Continue accelerating. Time, 5 minutes, 54 seconds. Continue accelerating. This training was carried out in a completely painless environment. For some reason, Ding Meng was looking forward to the painful training of crushing a boulder on his chest in the past. It was a little slow, but at least it felt real. Now, it was like a dream, giving off an illusory feeling, especially when his body was still floating in the air and had yet to return to the ground. However, as he sped up, although the time required to condense the entire mirror image was getting shorter and shorter, the speed of his progress slowed down. According to Xiao AI's report, starting from 3 minutes, each time he condensed the polygonal mirror image, he could shorten the time by 1 second at most. At 2 minutes, he needed to condense the polygonal mirror image twice to shorten the time by 1 second. At 1 minute, he basically needed to condense the polygonal mirror image 4 or 5 times, or even 7 or 8 times to shorten the time by 1 second. After an unknown amount of time, Xiao AI's robotic voice changed. Time, 11 seconds. Stop condensing. At this time, Ding Ming felt that his soul had returned to his body, but his body still felt very floating. Little Rascal explained, Ding Ming, when you reconstruct the 7th point and strengthen it, this feeling of weightlessness will completely disappear. However, the energy of the previous 6 points was definitely not enough to open the 7th point. So before you reconstruct it, you still need to refine the essence. Now try that cedar leaf. This cedar leaf was a special plant on planet V4. It was picked from a super big tree. Its appearance was like a mini version of the Skywalker's assault ship. It was completely white. Taking a small piece and putting it in his mouth, he immediately felt an intense, burning sensation on his tongue. This electric current was instantly transmitted to his brain, but his brain and other central nervous systems were not paralyzed. Instead, his mind was stimulated and his consciousness became clearer. It was even clearer than when he was in the induction cabin. Xiao AI said, according to my analysis, the effect of this small piece of leaf is more than 5 times the efficiency of an induction cabin. If combined with telekinesis, the overall cultivation speed can be increased by more than 15 times. ACT 5570, don't waste precious cultivation resources. Hurry up and do it. Ding Ming did not need her urging. He had already activated the diamond star fusing art and started absorbing the origin energy and poison gas around him. Previously, when he was refining the silver core stone in Flying City, it felt like he was forcibly melting an alloy steel plate with his bare hands. However, it was completely different this time. Apart from the dazzling essence in the air, the poison gas in his telekinesis vision was like pieces of silk. However, it was quickly fused with his origin energy and gathered at the core, causing the core to become dazzling and colorful. Little Rascal said excitedly, the poison has also entered the essence. In the future, when you attack, you will also have the poison effect. Without a doubt, she was happy too early because among the silk-like poisonous gas, there seemed to be a trace of dark green energy that was quietly drilling into her body. Even in the microscopic world of her telekinesis vision, this silk-like energy was almost impossible to see. It was like a tiny green thread was implanted into her body. Something's not right. Little Rascal's tone suddenly became serious. What is this? An unknown energy has been detected. Danger level cannot be determined for now. She was obviously not asking Ding Ming. At this moment, Ding Ming was completely focused on refining the essence. Xiao AI also let out a rare cry of surprise. There is no sample of this energy in the database. I'm currently analyzing it. The composition of this energy is very strange and unique. I can't even analyze it. Something's not right. This energy is repelling us. Little Rascal also sounded the alarm. It's an extremely strong energy resistance. Ding Ming, hurry up and stop absorbing the essence. In Ding Ming's field of vision, Little Rascal's round face was covering its eyes as if it was being pierced by intense sunlight. Meanwhile, Little Rascal's screen was crackling with electricity, and the image was sometimes blurry and sometimes clear. This was a warning of signal interference. However, for the first time, Ding Ming didn't listen to their advice. He continued to absorb the 3 different types of energy. Xiao AI was also getting a little anxious. ACT 557. The nature of this green energy is unknown. I suggest you stop absorbing it as soon as possible. Ding Ming slowly said, don't worry, it doesn't mean any harm. The 2 of them asked in unison. What is it? Ding Ming said in a deep voice, it's very difficult for me to explain it to you right now. This thin stream of green energy was transmitted to me by the super tree at the center of the camp. Little Rascal and Xiao AI were stunned. There was no way they could understand something like this. Ding Ming sighed. Only now do I know that this tree is alive. Little Rascal was puzzled. But plants and animals are all alive. Ding Ming continued. But it's different. It has its own unique life. I can sense that it's transmitting information to me. Little Rascal was even more puzzled. But why can't we sense it? The two of them were artificial intelligence programs, so they naturally couldn't possess all kinds of wondrous sensory abilities like human life forms. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. I'll explain this to you in the future. In any case, you two have to trust me. It doesn't mean any harm. It has the ability to protect itself. Shout AI was silent for a long time before speaking up. Perhaps ACT-5570 is right. Auxiliary system. Quickly look at the core, smelting singularity. Little Rascal was also given a fright. At this moment, a ring of green energy had appeared around the dazzling, smelting core, and it was slowly rotating like a planet's ring. Xiao AI's screen suddenly returned to normal, and the screen suddenly began to refresh. 9,000, 10,000, 11,000, 12,000, 13,000. Little Rascal was confused. What do you mean? Xiao AI explained. Even though I can't analyze its composition, the energy fluctuations can be calculated. Little Rascal was finally astonished. That's 13,000 points of origin energy. In reality, that was far from it. This was because Xiao AI could see that the ring of green energy was increasing at a rate of 1,000 points, and it didn't take long for it to exceed 30,000 points. It seemed that Ding Ming had no intention of stopping absorbing it. Little Rascal couldn't help but ask, "What kind of energy is this?" Xiao AI replied, "Don't ask so many questions. This is an opportunity. This energy is much gentler than the technological energy of the Flying Star City's silver core stones. According to my analysis, its specialty isn't that it's extremely powerful. Instead, it's that it's endless. ACT 5570 can take advantage of this to reconstruct the seventh origin. I suggest that you strengthen your body's self-recovery ability. This is what you're lacking the most at the moment." Ding Ming said solemnly, "That's exactly what I was thinking." Chapter 208. In the open space in the center of the camp, Run Tianlan was pacing back and forth. From time to time, he would turn his head to look at the woods in the north. He looked both anxious and expectant. His pace was very brisk. Ever since he swallowed Ding Ming's bottle of blood, he had begun to recover in just 2 days. The tentacles that stretched out of his wounds had miraculously retracted. Although the wounds had not healed, at least they no longer had pus. What surprised him the most was that a part of the origin in his body could slowly operate. The origin energy could already suppress the spread of the poison. "Old Run, don't worry." Beside him, Xian said with a smile, "Mr. Ding Ming is still recuperating. It's best not to disturb him." Of course, she had seen the changes in Run Tianlan's body these days. Ren Tianlan was the most severely poisoned one here. If Ding Ming could detoxify most of his poison, then it would be easy for him to detoxify everyone. Recovery was only a matter of time. "There's no hurry." Ren Tianlan grinned. "I've endured 70 or 80 years. 1 more month won't make a difference. By the way, Dr. Shui, is Brother Ding the origin of the mutated poisonous spirit you mentioned?" Shuyan smiled and said, "I don't know whether he is or not. Anyway, you just need to know that he can save all of us." Ren Tianlan rubbed his hands excitedly. "Hey, if we all recover, how should we thank Brother Ding? The happiest person in the entire camp would probably be him. Originally, he was already at the age where he was on the brink of death. However, now that he could still operate his origin ability, his chances of survival were very high. If he could completely recover and cultivate normally, once there was hope for a breakthrough, he would be able to live for another 70 to 80 years. Once a person struggled on the edge of life and death many times, they would develop a strong desire to survive." Xu Yin said, "If Mr. Ding Ming has any errands in the future, we will be at his service. I just don't know what he plans to do." Little Yin said that Mr. Ding Ming is an interstellar refugee and is not a citizen of the Holy Grail Federation. Ren Tianlan was startled. "If we're not citizens of the Federation, wouldn't it be more difficult for us to return to the Federation?" Xu Yin sighed. "Old Run, it's still too early to think about those things. Let's wait patiently for Mr. Ding Ming to recover." Before she could finish her sentence, a figure appeared in the forest path. Xiao Wei was carefully running toward them with a backpack in his arms. He obviously came from the northern jungle. Ren Tianlan immediately stopped him. Xiao Wei, what's the matter? Why are you in such a hurry? Xiao Wei seemed very excited. I just saw Mr. Ting. Is he all right? Xu Yin asked with concern. Xiao Wei said, it's fine. Mr. Ting is practicing his boxing over there. Practicing boxing? Xu Yin and Ren Tianlan's eyes widened. Are you sure he's practicing boxing? The two of them were surprised for a reason. Ren Tianlan's backpack was filled with the best preserved and highest quality exotic fruits and herbs in the camp. These things had one thing in common, which was that they could greatly reduce pain and accelerate the absorption of origin energy. The principle behind the cultivation of things like crystal berries was actually similar to that of poppies. Both of them put a person in an extremely comfortable state of numbness without feeling any pain. Of course, they didn't have the same side effects as poppies. Ren Tianlan stuffed 5 high-grade crystal berries into his backpack. Then, he sensed that Ding Meng was an advanced warrior. He guessed that Ding Meng was probably collecting poison in the northern jungle and using some kind of mutation-type secret manual to recover. If he wanted to use crystal berries, he estimated that Ding Meng only needed one. He should be able to recover in about 2 months. Now that a month had passed, Ding Meng was actually practicing boxing. Could it be that his origin energy had returned to normal? Or did he not eat any crystal berries at all? This question instantly piqued Ren Tianlan's curiosity. However, Xu Yin's focus wasn't on this. She looked at Xiao Wei and asked, "What's in this backpack?" Xiao Wei hugged the backpack tightly like a newborn baby. These are Mr. Ting's blood potions. There are 12 bottles in total. Mr. Ting specifically told me to distribute them to everyone. He said that we shouldn't rush to use them all at once. Instead, we should take them 1 drop at a time according to each person's symptoms. Consuming too much might be harmful. Xu Yin took the backpack. She was afraid that she would accidentally break it, so she hugged it tightly to her chest. Did Mr. Ting say anything else? Xiao Wei scratched his head. Mr. Ting also said that he could only provide so many bottles for now. He still needs time to recover. Of course. Xu Yin nodded in agreement. The blood of an origin energy user was incomparably precious, and Ding Meng's blood was even more precious. To everyone, it was no less precious than the blood of a battle saint-level origin energy user. Its rarity was comparable to the purest natural inverse source crystals in the universe. Let alone a month of recovery, even 10 months or a year or 2 of recovery would be worth it. Did he say anything else? Ren Tianlan couldn't help but ask. Seeing that he was the one asking the question, Xiao Wei hurriedly said, "By the way, Mr. Ren, Mr. Ting also specifically asked if we still have any crystal berries and cedar leaves. He doesn't need anything else. He only wants these 2. Ren Tianlan sucked in a breath of cold air. Don't tell me he used up all 5 crystal berries and 12 cedar leaves? Xiao Wei scratched his head again. I don't know about that. In any case, that's what he told me. He wants as many as he has. Xu Yin also had an incredulous look on her face. Xiao Wei's words made one thing clear. Ding Meng's cultivation was different from ordinary people's. It wasn't something that they could imagine. However, Ding Meng had his own secrets, and the only thing they could do was not to pry into his secrets. After a long time, she sighed and murmured, "If that's really the case, I can only say that God is fair after all. After so many years, he finally sent us such a benefactor to help us. What's a little crystal berry and cedar leaf worth? Oldren, give all your stock to Mr. Ding Meng." Ren Tianlan smiled bitterly. "He gave me my life. Even if he wants me dead, I'll be a coward if I blink. I'll give them to him personally later. I don't know how much he's recovered. I really hope he's fully recovered. Ding Meng's 7 origin points have been able to function normally 10 days ago. At the same time, he had also used the smelted essence to strengthen the 7th origin point twice. If he met Cheng Rifeng again in the future, Ding Meng was confident that he could beat the crap out of him. Since Crystal Berry and Cedar Leaf had been used up, Ding Meng was practicing his martial arts on the grass. Bright Fist 9 styles of swallow strike, 7 stars ghost kick, fiery rushing fist, fiery penetrating force, and fiery sky style were all skills that he had to practice. During the trip to the Flying Star City, Little Rascal had copied another 3 martial arts: Renjan's Holy Brilliance Array, Daiyi's 7 Stars Fist, and Jia Mao's Holy Tiger Yang Palm. Ding Ming basically knew all of these martial arts, but he still couldn't understand the essence of many of them and couldn't use them to their full potential. The key reason was not that he didn't want to work hard to practice them, but that he didn't like most of them. He didn't like those complicated and flexible martial arts because, in his opinion, those were all flowery and impractical moves. They were good at intimidating people with their imposing manner, but in fact, they were just nice to look at but useless. What he really liked were those moves that could defeat the opponent in one move, such as his own handblade back cut and Overlord's mountain crushing energy. These were the ultimate moves that if he didn't kill the opponent would die. There was also the scorching rushing fist and the flame energy penetrating force. He had received a lot of inspiration from Long Ming. These 2 martial skills could be combined into one. As long as you had enough foundation, few people would be able to block your punch. Jia Mao's Holy Brilliance Tiger Yang Palm was actually not bad, but he couldn't learn it for the time being. As for Elder Zhao's Solitary Sword and Heavenly Sword 13 styles, they were still too profound. He could only study them slowly. After practicing for a while, Ding Ming returned to the starting point, Li Stin Academy's Bright Fist. There was nothing special about this martial art. It was simple, clear, and easy to learn. If he practiced it for a long time, his physique would improve very quickly. He was now in the fusion realm, and there was hope for him to break through to the peak realm. Now, when he punched out, the air would explode, and the bushes and vines within a 1-meter radius would be shaken into powder by the force of the fist. Ding Ming was happily practicing when he suddenly felt an aura coming from the side. The aura was still strong and much more stable. She turned her head and saw Ren Tianlan walking towards her with a new backpack in his hand. Ding Ming greeted him. "Mr. Ren, you've recovered well." Ren Tianlan laughed heartily. "Haha, Brother Ding, it's all thanks to you. I brought you crystal berries and cedar leaves." As he spoke, he put the backpack on the grass and asked with a smile, "Brother Ding, if I'm not wrong, your current strength should be at the level of a war elder, right?" Ding Ming nodded. He also knew that this could not be hidden from people who were stronger than him. Besides, Ren Tianlan had recovered a lot, so his perception naturally became sharper. In fact, when Ren Tianlan came over and personally came in contact with Ding Ming's current aura, he was really shocked. He did not know why Ding Ming had such a high cultivation at such a young age. He only knew that as long as Ding Ming did not experience major disasters in his life like he did, his future achievements would be unimaginable. So he began to give a friendly signal. "Brother Ding, forgive me for being blunt, but your martial art is really not that good." Ding Ming finally became interested. "Oh, Mr. Run, can you give me some pointers?" In his opinion, people who had fought in real battlefields would definitely have a different understanding of martial arts compared to ordinary people. Perhaps old Mr. Rin knew the essence of some martial arts techniques and the secret behind them. Although he was modest, Ren Tianlan thought, "I don't dare to give you pointers." However, he still pointed out earnestly, "Brother Ding, I don't know the name of your punching skill, but according to my experience, it should be a basic punching skill. Your basic punching skill hasn't reached the peak yet. It can be imagined that although your energy strength is strong, your martial arts must be relatively weak. If you encounter a single opponent, you can crush them with your strength. If you encounter a group of opponents besieging you, you can only parry. Mr. Ren is really right." Ding Ming was suddenly overjoyed. The fact that he was chased by a group of mercenaries in armor on the Meteor City was a clear proof. "Mr. Ren, please give me some detailed pointers." Chapter 209. When it came to the practice of martial arts, Ren Tianlan also put on a serious look. "Brother Ding, I think your punches are strong and fast, so you don't need continuous movements to superimpose strength. Your muscles contract and squeeze the rebound of the origin energy in your body, and the external force bursting out also forms the vibration force. It seems to be powerful, but you haven't mastered the key points because you haven't controlled this explosive force very well. Ding Meng was a little stunned. This external force can be controlled? Of course, Ren Tianlan said proudly. You must know the ice extinction palm of the ice series, right? There's a very classic move among them, the three-layer waves. Ding Meng nodded. He had seen this move from Julie, and it was quite powerful. Ren Tianlan sternly said, the explosive power of the ice element is weak, but the ice element's origin ability can slow down the speed. The power released by the ice element is actually solidified in the air. Therefore, not only can the threefold wave superimpose power, but can also be faintly controlled to produce an oppressive or confining effect. By the same logic, the thermal element can also superimpose power. However, the thermal element focuses more on speed, skill, and explosive power. Ding Meng was a little confused. Ren Tianlan smiled and said, well, I'll show you. But now I can barely operate the origin of the basic skills. So, Brother Ding, please don't laugh at me. Ding Meng laughed and said, Mr. Ren, you're joking. You're a senior, and I'm not qualified to laugh at you. Ren Tianlan nodded and secretly operated his origin energy. He concentrated and calmed down. Suddenly, he stepped forward with his left palm pressed on the inner side of his right wrist. The standard army boxing move was to use his right arm to elbow forward. Then he smashed his fist in the opposite direction with one hand. Finally, he opened his fist and turned it into a palm. Bang, bang, bang. After 3 muffled sounds, the air in front of him exploded 3 times in a row. The air was like a bubble. As soon as his elbow struck out, the first bubble appeared. The moment his right hand swung out, the second bubble appeared. The first bubble seemed to have melted into the second bubble. When his fist was completely smashed out, the second bubble on his fist exploded. Then, like lightning, it traveled 4 to 5 meters in front of him and exploded again. A huge shrub was blasted into powder by the third wave of chi. Holy shit, Little Rascal was shocked. Old Man Zao is also using the collapsing force, and it's the cannon force. Of course, Ding Meng was also surprised. Ren Tianlan had neglected his origin energy in martial arts for so many years, and his body had not fully recovered yet. Yet his casual punch was so powerful. His attainments in martial arts were really... This time, he had asked the right person. With Ren Tianlan's current physical condition, it was impossible for him to finish a set of army boxing. However, one punch was enough. He could not help but smile and say, Brother Ding, did you see it clearly? No matter how specific a martial arts demonstration is, you still have to rely on yourself to slowly practice it. I understand. Ding Meng nodded slowly. Ren Tianlan smiled and said, I won't disturb you too much. Brother Ding, take your time to recover. He was actually very shrewd. He had not come personally to see how Ding Meng was recovering, nor did he want to impart any experience to him. He just wanted to personally sense Ding Meng's true strength. Now, he knew 2 things. Ding Meng was a thermodynamics elementalist, and his strength was at least at the beginner level of war supremacy. His heart was filled with emotion and shock. He was emotional because Ding Meng's strength did not match his age. He was shocked because a thermodynamics elementalist could actually be related to mutation-type poisons, and his martial arts were so weak. It was simply inconceivable. Years of suffering had made him very suspicious. Even if Ding Meng could detoxify everyone, who could guarantee that Ding Meng did not have any bad intentions? But now, he could not see Ding Meng's true colors. At least, he could not see through this little guy's foundation. In any case, the cannon force he had shown was at the peak of the cannon force realm, which was enough for Ding Meng to study for a long time. He would not have the energy to think about other things. He was wrong. He did not know that Ding Meng had 2 big cheats, telekinesis vision and little bad duplication. In fact, even without cheating, Ding Meng could see it clearly. Ren Tianlan's elbows turned into fists, and his fists turned into palms. It seemed like his movements were stacking strength, but in fact his fingers were changing rapidly to control the strength. Especially when he opened his palms, the rapid trembling of his fingers was not something an ordinary person could see. I see. Let's practice according to this method. Ding Meng made a decision. Little Bad also agreed. I'm afraid the essence of martial arts from the fusion realm to the peak of the martial arts realm is these elements. While Ding Meng was working hard to cultivate, Meng Yin was not idle. After the blazing shark spaceship was recharged in the camp, she went out again. This time, she did not think of a way to steal or rob. She used Ding Meng's name to contact Marshall, who with the mentality of giving a try. To her surprise, Marshall, who happily connected to her quantum communication signal. Due to the strong radiation interference on the periphery of Poison Hazard Planet, the image of the remote real-time projection was also very blurry, but the sound could still be heard very clearly. Boss Ding, you want to borrow a carrier ship? Marshall, who was a little puzzled. Meng Yin was a little embarrassed. This was a request she forced herself to make. There was a qualitative difference between a starship and a spaceship. No matter how bad a starship was, at least it was equipped with defense facilities and weapon systems. However, it was really too unsafe for a single carrier ship to fly in outer space. Even she herself was on tenterhooks every time she drove the blazing shark spaceship out. Unexpectedly, Marshall, who agreed very quickly. No problem. As long as it's Boss Ding's request, it's fine. Please tell him that Miss Dai has already returned to the Green Arrow Corps under the escort of our Assault Corps. Green Arrow has also arranged for a fleet to send her back to the Federation. Meng Yin was obviously not at ease with him. Commander who? Don't forget that I wanted to kill you on my spaceship back then. Marshall, who smiled. Nightmare. Let's forget about the past. It's pointless for you to mention this. How about this? Shi Yin and Mao Ji are with me. If you're not at ease, let the two of them drive this carrier ship alone. You can command them from the periphery of Pandora at any time. As for which coordinates to drive it to, you could decide at any time. How about it? So it's like this. Meng Yin thought that this method was not bad. In any case, those two brats would not be able to cause any waves in front of her. Okay, then it's settled. Marshall, who said, it will take at most 1 month. I guarantee that you will see the carrier ship. Although it was said to be 1 month, it was actually 2 months later when the Assault Corps' carrier ship arrived. When the flashing green carrier ship appeared at the periphery of the Pandora system, the first thing Meng Yin did when she rushed into the rescue port was to curse in anger. What the hell are you two bastards doing? A 1-month route was forcibly taken by you two for 2 months and 5 days. She appeared in the image of Chong Wei. Even if it was a fake Chong Wei, it was still quite intimidating to the four-eyed man and the Russians. This, Brother Chong. Oh no, Brother Meng, you can't blame me for this. The four-eyed man was clearly doing well in the Assault Corps. He actually got himself a yellow suit made of high-end materials to wear. The only thing that was slightly unsightly was that his tie was a little dirty, as if it was stained with something like chili oil. Furthermore, he was wearing a pair of beast skin sandals. If you want to blame the Russians, Commander, who set an automatic route for us when we set off, but he insisted on changing it. I didn't change it. Brother Meng, don't listen to his nonsense. The Russians waved their hands in fear. I just manually drove it for a while. The four-eyed man sneered. Damn, you don't even know how to drive a starship. You want to use this starship to practice? Great. Now we've deviated from the route and delayed for more than a month. The Russian stared and said, will you die if you're so honest? To think that I even gave you half a bag of red plums. Your ability to trick me is the best in the world. Meng Yin was surprised. The two of you can even drive the mantis armor, but you don't know how to operate a starship? The Russians smiled awkwardly. Back when I was in the Sky Wolf Corps, I was also forced to learn. I only knew how to use that armor, and I couldn't do anything else. Starships are more fun, so my hands itched and I started a meeting. Cough, cough, Brother Meng, I'm sorry. Come, smoke, I have red plums here, Meng Yin said unhappily. The Russians will stay on the starship. Four-eyed, come down with me. She had no choice but to make such an arrangement. With the outer layer of stardust and the layer of metal in the atmosphere of Planet V4, if such a large starship were to forcefully land, corrosion and friction would be unavoidable. This starship still had a long flight ahead of it, and she could not bear to have any damage. This concerned the safety of hundreds of people. Thus, the Blazing Shark spaceship once again passed through the poisonous gas and forest and returned to the landing pad of the camp. When Meng Yin walked out of the connecting cabin door, she realized that the central clearing under the big tree was very lively today. The people who were usually curled up in their houses and struggling at death's door had all come out. All of them were in high spirits and jumping around happily. The large and small wounds, the different colored pus, the terrifying tentacles, the mutated bodies, all the symptoms had disappeared. They were no different from normal humans. They were walking, chatting, and joking around. As she watched, Meng Yan's eyes became moist. This scene had appeared in her dreams countless times, but it had finally become reality today. "Sister Meng Yin, you're back." Xiao Wei ran over to welcome her. Meng Yin was still in disbelief. "You are all better?" Xiao Wei was very happy. "Basically, we're all better. It was Mr. Ting who treated us." Meng Yin could not help but ask, "Where's Mr. Ting?" Xiao Wei hesitated. "Mr. Ting is still recuperating in the North District. Aunt Shuyin and Mr. Run are accompanying him." Meng Yin said, "Let's go and take a look." If she wanted to go, Four-Eyed had no choice but to follow. To be honest, Four-Eyed was traumatized by Ding Meng. Whatever good things he had on him would be taken away by Ding Meng. F***, this yellow suit is so cool. If Brother Ding takes a fancy to it, won't I have to spank him again? Chapter 210. Bang, 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 bang. There was only this monotonous and dull sound on the grass. Ding Meng was still practicing the most basic bright fist and army fist. The problem was that every punch he threw now not only could produce the explosive effect that Ren Tianlan had demonstrated, but the cannon force could also explode from 10 meters away. Not only could it turn a bunch of shrubs into ashes, but could also blast a deep hole in the ground. The power of his fists could be considered to be on par with his profound origin energy. Ren Tianlan stood in the distance and stared blankly. In his opinion, no matter how powerful Ding Meng was, this kind of technique would take at least 1 or 2 years of hard work to master. Now, Ding Meng had completely mastered it in just 2 months. No matter how picky a person was, there was no doubt that Ding Meng's fist technique was at the peak realm. When Meng Yin arrived with 4 eyes, the 3 people on the grass turned around in unison. Before Ding Meng and the other 2 could say anything, Meng Yin was extremely shocked. The wounds on Ren Tianlan's body had all healed. He stood there, and there was no doubt that a vigorous aura was revealed. Beside him, Shuyan's aura was even stronger. Compared to Ren Tianlan's vigorous aura, Shuyan's aura was soft, gentle, and delicate. When one came into contact with this aura, they would feel as if they were bathing in a spring breeze. However, her origin energy foundation was clearly stronger than Ren Tianlan's. What surprised her the most was that the wounds on Shuyan's face had also healed. Her hair had returned to its normal black color. Although she was not young, she had regained her former beauty and elegance. She looked at least 10 years younger. "Aunt Shuyan." Meng Yin quickly ran over. Shuyan smiled and said, "Mr. Ding Meng knew that you were coming, so this thing was specially left for you." Only now did Meng Yin notice that when Ding Meng was practicing his fist technique earlier, the origin energy he produced seemed to be even more ferocious than when he had fought with Cheng Rifeng. Now that she had arrived, Ding Meng withdrew his fist and turned around, and all of the origin energy had disappeared without a trace. If she wasn't clear about Ding Meng's ability, anyone else would have thought that Ding Meng was just an ordinary person. Presumably, Ding Meng's cultivation had improved again in the past few months. However, she did not care about this because Shuyan handed her a small crystal bottle. The blood inside the bottle had a faint yellow glow. She clearly did not know that this was because as Ding Meng's strength increased, the effects of the K-virus also increased. "Little Yin," Ren Tianlan walked over and said earnestly, You're the only one who hasn't been treated yet. Brother Ding just since your arrival and specially refined this bottle of new blood. Meng Yin did not say anything. She took the small bottle and bowed deeply to Ding Meng to show her respect. Ding Meng nodded and said faintly, Aunt Shuiyin also cultivates the phantom fantasy technique. That's a secret technique, and ordinary doses are not enough. Try this new bottle now. I think it should be able to quickly remove the poison. Meng Yin did not hesitate. She raised her head and swallowed the bottle of fresh blood. As soon as the burning current entered her body, Shuiyin immediately said, circulate the phantom fantasy technique. Don't resist it. Fuse it slowly. Try to imagine your normal appearance at that time. In the eyes of the four-eyed man, Meng Yan's terrifying transformation of her whole body into purple smoke appeared again. However, this time it was not purple smoke, but a strange black fog that completely enveloped Meng Yan. It spun quickly like a tornado. Ding Meng glanced at the four-eyed man and said, still not holding your breath? Do you want to be poisoned to death? It was only then that the four-eyed man smelled a thick stench. It was clearly emitted by the black fog. Not only did he quickly hold his breath, he also jumped far away. The black fog spun for 3 minutes before slowly coming to a stop. After the poison had dispersed, Meng Yan's true body was revealed. She was still wearing the spacious blue-black robe. However, her entire person had undergone a complete transformation. The right side of her face, right shoulder, right leg, and right side of her body had all returned to normal. She had turned into a real woman. Shuiyin turned on her wrist device and raised a screen. She turned on the screen's reflection function and extended it in front of Meng Yan. She smiled and said, Little Yin, look at the real you. Are you satisfied? The screen showed a complete woman's face. It was different from other women's gentle, charming, pure, and elegant faces. Her face was sharper, as if it had been chiseled by a knife. She had a valiant beauty. Coupled with her clean and neat short hair, she had a shrewd and experienced temperament. Although her face was no longer young, it had a slightly mature and strange charm. She was only 29 years old this year. Once she could return to the normal human world, her future was worth looking forward to. Most importantly, she could already feel the changes in many parts of her body under the robe. It was a form that many women envied. Moreover, Ding Meng's blood seemed to have a transformation power. In just a short moment, she felt that her body circulation had become smoother, and her mind was exceptionally clear. Why aren't you thanking Mr. Ding Meng? Shuiyin reminded her with a smile. Meng Yin seemed to have woken up from a dream. She walked in front of Ding Meng and knelt down respectfully. She said seriously, I am unable to repay Mr. Ding Meng's kindness of giving me a new life. I am willing to follow Mr. Ding Meng forever. I will never be disloyal in my life. I sincerely hope that Mr. Ding Meng will agree. Ding Meng sighed, Get up. You don't have to be so serious. Speaking of which, I am the youngest among you. You are all the elders. There is no need to be so exaggerated in the future. Do you understand? I don't dare. Meng Yin still knelt and did not move. Ding Meng was a little speechless. Then, he exerted a little force with his eyes. Meng Yin suddenly felt an invisible force attacking her and forcibly lifting her up. She could not resist it at all. Meng Yin also knew that Ding Meng had this kind of invisible force ability, so she could only stand aside obediently. However, at this time, she secretly operated the phantom fantasy technique. After a burst of purple smoke appeared on her face, her heroic face changed slightly and became a very ordinary middle-aged woman's face. Shuiyin was stunned. You finally became a normal person. Why did you change again? Are you not satisfied with yourself? Meng Yin smiled apologetically. That's not it. I always feel that it is better to be ordinary. Beauty is sometimes a fortune, but more often, it is also a kind of disaster. Shuiyin was stunned, and then nodded with satisfaction. She had watched Meng Yin grow up. She had been running around for the people in the camp for many years. Her experience and knowledge were naturally different from that of many women. It was quite impressive for her to have such an idea. Next to her, Ren Tianlan clapped his hands. Since everyone is here, I think it's about time, right? Shuyan nodded and said, "Everyone is ready. Get ready to go." In the central open space of the camp, hundreds of people lined up neatly in a row and boarded the ship one after another with large and small bags. The Blazing Shark spaceship would ascend to the carrier ship, and the starship would send everyone to planet KV-303. After settling down, they would slowly think of a way to get the military angel medical cabin. Under Ding Meng's instructions, Shuyan did not completely shut down the operation of the Silver Core Stone. She left this place as it was. Although she did not know what Ding Meng was thinking, this place was obviously not suitable for ordinary people to live in. Moving away from Planet Poison Hazard was inevitable. However, seeing everyone slowly boarding the ship, Shuyan could not help but sigh. When I first came here, I never thought that I would stay here for half a century. I always wanted to leave here, but today, when I really have to leave, I suddenly feel a little reluctant. Rin Tanlon smiled bitterly and sighed. I'm exactly the same as you. After living here for so long, I've long had feelings for this place. Shuyan said, what should be left must be left. If we don't break away from the past, there will be no future. Rin Tianlon said, yes, it's time to live a normal life. We have all left the Federation for too long. At this moment, there was a slight gust of wind above the campsite. The super tree swayed slightly, and countless snowflakes drifted down, dancing with the wind. The entire campsite seemed to be shrouded in a soft and tranquil dance of snow. These stars were a bit like dandelions, but they were far more beautiful than dandelions. This was because they were sparkling and full of spirituality, like elves. What are these? Meng Yin was a little curious. Why have I never seen these things before? Shuyan sighed and said, from a medical point of view, these should be the seeds of this big tree. I remember that when we first landed here, this kind of seed rain fell once. After that, for more than 60 years, I haven't seen it again. I didn't expect to see it again today. Her tone was still full of emotion, as if this big tree was also full of spirituality. It seemed to know when they would come and when they would leave, so it used this way to welcome them and send them off in the same way. These are not seeds. Ding Meng's voice came. Shuyan and the others turned their heads to look, and they saw Ding Meng standing under a tree with his palm open. Many seeds were actually gathering in his palm, and it didn't take long for them to gather into a large seed. It was just like a bright white ball of light. This, Shuyan and the other two looked at each other. They could not explain this phenomenon. Go! Ding Meng gently pushed his hand up, and the ball of light split with a bang. The seeds danced in the air again. What is this? Meng Yin could not suppress her curiosity. Ding Meng smiled gently and did not answer her. Let's go. It's about time. He was unwilling to answer Meng Yin, and he did not ask any more questions. He turned around and walked toward the spaceship. Ding Meng was the last to board the spaceship. Before boarding, he could not help but turn around to the cabin door and look back at the dancing seeds. Another breeze swept past, and the big tree swayed gently. The seeds seemed to twist into a rope, twisting happily in the air as if they were saying goodbye to him. Ding Meng nodded silently and muttered to himself, perhaps I will come back one day. Chapter 2:11. The Blazing Shark ship entered the rescue port, and the transport ship began its long interstellar journey. This journey was undoubtedly much quieter. Ding Meng stayed in the lounge to cultivate. He had told Meng Yin in advance not to disturb his rest unless there was something special. The hundreds of people who came out of the campsite now revered Ding Meng as if he was a god. Whatever he said, they would do. When he said they would not disturb them, they did not even enter the resting area. All of them stayed in the energy cabin and the database. Most of these people were non-combat origin ability users, and they were basically all doctors. Once they recovered, they began to study. They had left the Federation for too many years, and a lot of their knowledge and information could not keep up with the current era. It just so happened that the energy module and the database had enough photon computers and information for them to consult, so everyone was eagerly studying. This time, it was the Four-Eyed Man and Harry's turn to be bored. The Four-Eyed Man was a bit better, as Harry's old red plum had already been smoked a few days ago. Once his addiction to smoking kicked in, he became abnormally irritable. Four-eyed, I seem to remember that you still have a few packs of Tyndonction on you, right? Harry fiddled with the interstellar map on the control panel. The four-eyed man had a cigarette but in his mouth, and his eyes narrowed as he smoked. You uncultured thing, what Tyndonction? This is called Hometown Mountain. Harry laughed. Yes, Hometown Mountain, Hometown Mountain. How about it? Give your brother one a try. I'm getting impatient. The four-eyed man took the cigarette but out of his mouth and handed it to Harry. Here, take it. I'll let you have a few puffs. Don't say that I'm not loyal enough. Harry was furious and slapped the cigarette but away. I'm loyal to your father. You give me the leftovers, but you secretly smoke new cigarettes. You call that loyalty? The four-eyed man suddenly let out a strange cry, and his whole body trembled. Harry sneered. This trick again, trying to change the topic? The four-eyed man fiercely patted his chest. What the F***CK? The cigarette burned my suit, you mother of ***er. Harry was stunned. Wife? Where did you get a wife? How come I don't know? The four-eyed man was speechless. It's a suit, not a wife. What kind of ears do you have? Mousy said, oh, sorry, my ears are foggy, I didn't hear clearly. Scram to the side. Four-eyed kicked Harry to the ground, then went to fiddle with the map. Not only did Malzian not get what she wanted, but she was also kicked hard by him. She got up and was about to fight back when she suddenly heard the system voice from the main control panel. Impossible. Impossible. Mousy asked curiously, what's the situation? Fry's expression was a bit serious. Don't mess around. I've sent 13 communication signals to the coordinates given by Big Sister Ming, but there was no response. Mousy said, that planet KV303. The four-eyed man said, yes, that one. Mousy's eyes darted around. Did you get the coordinates wrong? The four-eyed man said, wrong, sister. I've sent it 13 times. How could I be wrong? Mousy also realized that something was wrong. You'd better tell Sister Ming. The ship is full of people. If something goes wrong, Brother Ding will beat you to death. The four-eyed man didn't raise any objections this time. All right, go and call Big Sister Ming to the control hall. Mousy was immediately dissatisfied. Damn it, why don't you go? The four-eyed man argued. Last time, I went to the poison hazard planet. This time, it's your turn. Mousy said, why? Because of this. The four-eyed man took out a Honktashin cigarette and waved it in front of him. Mousy grabbed it and put it in his mouth. After lighting it, he gritted his teeth and turned around. Damn it, the next time you don't have a cigarette, I'll show you. The four-eyed man kicked him again. Move faster, you're so slow. Meng Yin was quickly invited over. She also fiddled with the interstellar map. There's no response at all? The four-eyed man didn't dare to be rash. Yes, I've waited for a few hours since the last signal was sent, but there's really no response at all. Mousy hesitated. Could it be that Green Arrow's people dozed off and forgot to look at the communication channel? Impossible. Meng Yin flatly rejected. Mr. Ting said that Green Arrow's base is a tower receiver. There's also a spaceport there to land spaceships. Even if there's no one guarding the tower, it's not to the extent that spaceships can't be received, right? The four-eyed man said seriously, yes, I used quantum communication for the last 3 times. They didn't reply at all. Meng Yin said in a deep voice, you two keep an eye on the communication channel. I'll go invite Mr. Ting over. Ding Ming was quickly alerted. 10 minutes later, he appeared in the control hall. After listening to the report from the four-eyed man and the other two, he fell into deep thought. He didn't complete the mission in Meteor City, and the reagent was snatched away by Bayou in the end. However, the Green Arrow Corps wouldn't go so far as to draw a clear line with him and cut off all contact with him. He wasn't sure if the higher-ups of Green Arrow would think this way, but he knew that Gulaga and Sleeman were definitely not such people. After pondering for a long time, Ding Meng asked, how far are we from planet KV303 now? Meng Yin said, at our current speed, we'll reach it in 3 days. Ding Meng said, what if the stabilizer enters extreme speed? The four-eyed man said, we'll reach it in 4 hours. Ding Meng decisively ordered, Then turn on all the ion engines and fly there as fast as we can. His hunch was right. After the carrier entered star system KV-3545, the ion radar was turned on, and the real-time image of planet KV-303 was displayed. The Green Arrow base was still located on the snowy ground of the eternal night, but the 15-story spaceport was no longer there. It was as if it had been sliced diagonally by a sharp sword. The 7th to 15th floors were gone, and the remaining part had turned into ruins. The helipad was riddled with holes, and not a single spaceship could be seen. There were raging flames everywhere, and the snowy ground outside was full of burn marks. There was still billowing smoke, and there were deep pits, corpses, and debris everywhere. It was obvious that this place had been attacked not long ago. Judging from the scene, it must have been a fierce aerial battle. Ding-Ming never expected that the Green Arrow base would be bombed to such a degree. The Four-Eyed Man was also shocked. Holy shit, this is the Holy Grail Federation's observation area. Someone actually dared to make a move here. They've got some guts. Meng Yan's face was solemn. To have such guts, it's most likely one of those space pirates. Ding-Ming's face was unusually cold. See if there's anyone alive? Yes. It seems there's only one left. The Russian zoomed in on the image and saw that on the tarmac, there was a person dragging two other people with great difficulty as they walked through the snowy ground. The image of the person being dragged was red. This was a hologram created by thermal imaging, proving that this person was alive. However, the two people being dragged were dark gray. Clearly, they had no signs of life and were already dead. It seemed that this person was planning to bury his companions' bodies deep in the snow. Hurry up and land. Ding-Ming was anxious. The tarmac was destroyed, so it was not easy for the huge starship to land. It could only land on a slightly flat, snowy ground further away. As soon as the cabin door opened, Ding-Ming was the first to rush out in the snowstorm. His speed was really like a sharp arrow leaving the bow, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Xue Yin and Meng Yin followed closely behind. Ren Tianlan and the Four-Eyed Man stayed behind to receive the hundreds of people on the ship. If there was any situation, they would immediately close the cabin door. On the runway of the spaceport, Ding-Ming could finally see the tragic situation around him. None of the dozens of blazing shark spaceships were spared. All of them exploded or disintegrated, and the wreckage was scattered all over the base. The corpses of the hunters were deformed. Not many of them were intact. Most of them were charred in the explosion. Some were smashed into meat paste by the steel plates of falling from the sky. Some were blasted into pieces by the particle laser cannons, and some were hacked to death by weapons. Not only were broken limbs scattered all over the ground, but they were also splattered and hung on the wreckage of the spaceship. It was a horrible sight to behold. However, the hunters were not the ones who suffered the most. Many unarmed refugees fell to the ground like wheat in a paddy field. They were cut down like grass, lying neatly on the ground. Judging from the way they ran and the look of terror in their eyes, they must have screamed and struggled to escape before being mercilessly killed by the enemies chasing after them. Many of these corpses were headless, so they must have been cut off by a sharp weapon. Ding-Ming rushed to the snowy ground and shouted, "Yuliang, Big Brother Yuliang, Big Brother Yuliang." He had already observed with his telekinesis vision. The last person alive was Yuliang. Yuliang's face could not be seen at all. His clothes were burned and wrapped around his body. The large and small wounds on his body were shockingly dense. The blood on his face had long dried and was replaced by black soot. "Brother Ding." Yuliang's dim eyes suddenly flashed with a glimmer of light. "You're back." Ding-Ming gritted his teeth and said, "What's going on? How did you end up like this?" Yuliang showed an expression of grief and indignation. "They're all dead. They're all dead. I just came back, and they're already like this." Ding-Ming said, "Where's Captain Galaga? Captain Silman?" Yuliang gritted his teeth and said, "After sending Miss Dai E to the Federation, the deputy commander reported back to the main base. He was lucky enough to escape this calamity and is on his way here. The captain is heavily injured and is now in the basement. I'm the only one on the surface. I went out to buy some supplies and hid. The moment I came back, the enemy fleet left. If not for the escape pod, I would have died. But when I came out of the pod, this place, but then, but. His voice suddenly choked. Obviously, he could not continue because anyone who climbed out of the escape pod would be shocked by the tragic situation around them, let alone someone like Yu Liang who had deep feelings for this place. He could not accept the situation in front of him. The people on the starship behind us will come to help you. There are supplies on it. Hang in there. I'll go find the captain. After Ding Meng said this, he rushed to the small hill in the south like the wind. Chapter 212. As soon as the stone slab on the ground of the cave was lifted, Ding Meng rushed down as fast as he could. The basement was the same as before. The neat rows of beds and various facilities were still there, and the power supply and heating systems were not damaged. The only difference was that most of the people here were gone. Silman was lying on a simple wooden bed. His clothes were in tatters, and the bloodstains on the sheets had turned grayish-brown. They must have dried up a long time ago. However, what surprised Ding Meng the most was that Silman's right calf was gone and wrapped in a large ball of gauze. His left hand was also cut off at the wrist, and the wound looked like it had been cut off by a sharp weapon. What happened? Ding Meng rushed to the bedside. Seeing that it was him, Silman forced a smile on his face. He was obviously resisting the pain. "Brother Ding, you're finally back. Lie down and don't move." Ding Meng noticed that he was struggling to sit up with one hand on the bed, so he quickly pressed him back down. "What happened? Tell me slowly." 4 days ago, the extreme pirate fleet suddenly rushed into this star field and attacked our base. After they landed, a large group of pirates came. They killed any man they saw, robbed any woman they saw, and robbed any supplies they found. Salmon's face was filled with sadness. 4 days ago, the extreme pirate fleet suddenly rushed into this star field and attacked our base. After they landed, they attacked our base. Ding Meng only then noticed that the beds around him were filled with old people, and all of them were seriously injured. As for the women, there was not a single one left. Ding Meng used his psychic vision to sense the situation, and he was slightly relieved. In the furthest corner, Ah Xiao was curled up in front of the bed, hugging little Shanzi. Little Shanzi seemed to have fallen asleep. Ding Meng turned his head and said, "I know this pirate crew. They actually have the guts to break into the Federation's observation area." Silman sighed. "We didn't expect them to come in so brazenly." Ding Meng frowned. Didn't the Federation's nearby space station have any warning or support? Salman shook his head. There was no warning. Furthermore, on the day of the battle, the first thing we did was to seek help from Planet Phoenix 3 space station, which was closest to the Federation's border. The other party's reply was that there was no patrol fleet stationed at the space station for the time being. They sent 2 destroyers to provide support. Ding Meng asked, "How many ships did the extreme pirates send?" Salman said, "It's impossible to count. The sky is filled with ship-class units, but I'm sure there's a transport ship nearby. Otherwise, with so many spaceships swarming in at once, the space station will definitely give an early warning." Ding Meng took a deep breath. It seems that they came prepared. This is not a coincidence. He made this judgment because planet KV-303 was too poor. It was so poor that it only had these refugees left. Even if you came here to burn, kill, and loot, the resources used would not make up for the losses. Moreover, it was a notorious extreme pirate troop. They would not do anything that would make them lose money. At this moment, Meng Yin, Shu Yin, Four-Eyed, and Harry also came down from the passageway. Salman ignored him and continued. "Actually, they came looking for you." "Looking for me?" Ding Meng was truly surprised. "I've never had any dealings with them." Salman nodded and sighed. "At that time, my arms and legs were already broken. A few of my brothers and I were hiding in the cave above. We also thought that we couldn't escape, but in order to protect everyone, the 3 of them took the initiative to charge out and led a large group of pirates away. Only then did the few hundred people below survive." Ding Meng clenched his fists. He could imagine that the 3 young men who rushed out were either shot into a hornet's nest or chopped into meat paste. Salman's eyes also turned red. Their screams before they died. I heard them. He could not continue. After a long time, he felt that he could speak again. He silently stared at the ceiling. I swear I will never forget their screams for the rest of my life. What he could not forget was not the screams, but the friendship. This place could do without Captain Gulaga, Ding Ming, and even reinforcements, but it could not do without Salmon. If he died, the people on planet KV-303 would lose their backbone, and there would be no hope for the future. He was the most important person here. That was why the three young men were willing to die for him, and Ding Ming still did not know their names. Ding Ming could not speak, and could only wait for Salmon to explain. At that time, I covered up the stone door in the basement and asked the survivors to lock the door from below. I thought that if they still wanted to come in and search, at most I would die, and there might still be hope for everyone. Who knew that they did not come in again? However, I heard the conversation of the few people outside very clearly. It should be the pirate leader of this operation. Ding Ming asked, what were they talking about? Salmon seemed to be trying hard to recall this soul-stirring scene. He was lying behind the mountain rock, unable to use his origin energy, and did not even dare to breathe too loudly. However, the voices outside were extremely clear. Brother Ben, we've searched everywhere, but we still haven't found Ding Ming. Brother Ben, are you sure you've searched everywhere? The reporter, we really haven't found this person. Unless he was killed in the explosion in one of the spaceships, or he was crushed to death by a falling steel plate on the ground. Brother Ben flatly denied. That's impossible. The reporter, why? Brother Ben pondered and said, according to the information provided by the client, this Ding Ming is at least an advanced warrior. If advanced warriors are really as useless as you say, then why would the client need to ask us for help? The reporter obviously agreed with this reasoning. But Brother Ben, this place is so poor that there isn't even the slightest bit of profit. If we can't find him, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for us to give the client an answer, and it'll also be very difficult for us to report back to headquarters. Brother Ben said, you don't have to worry about that. The client doesn't really want Ding Ming's life. He just wants to teach him a lesson and deepen his impression of him. The reporter clearly could not understand the client's actions. He asked in astonishment, spending so much effort just to teach him a lesson? This client's needs are really unique. Brother Ben became impatient. What do you know? This Ding Ming left a mark on someone else, so naturally, the other party has to teach him a lesson. If we really can't find him, then we should prepare to retreat. If we delay any longer, the starships from the space station will arrive. Kill all the men and bring all the women back so that our brothers can have some fun. Ding Ming himself will find out about what happened here sooner or later. We can consider it as deepening the client's impression of us. The reporter, yes. I'll immediately inform everyone to retreat. Silman said, I'm sure they didn't discover me at that time, so I'm sure they're here for you. It's very likely that they're your enemies. Ding Ming fell in a deep thought. He had quite a number of enemies, but most of them had been killed by him personally or indirectly. There were only a few that were still alive. The Celestial Wolf Corps was definitely one of them. After all, he had caused such a huge commotion in Meteor City. The people from Extreme Heaven Corporation were definitely a powerful enemy, because Chu Yifeng had not really obtained the memory of the cave virus yet. Originally, the Ambush Corps was also one of them, but after the incident in Meteor City, the Marshal had obviously sided with Ding Ming. As for Lei Bao and Sister Hong from Leaston Academy, they were not qualified to be Ding Ming's enemies. Besides, Lei Bao had died a long time ago, and it was impossible for them to know his whereabouts. Ding Ming hesitated and said, could it be that these pirates were hired by Yin Feng Wei? Silman shook his head and said, the possibility of that is too small. Not only does the chief know about what you did in Jifan Academy, almost all the mercenary corps in outer space know about it. Yin Feng Wei's daughter has already been rescued in space, and he doesn't intend to pursue the matter because he also knows that Baiyu has defected from Green Arrow. Both of our families have suffered great losses, he paused, then continued to explain. Also, with the Celestial Wolf Corps style in the past, it's impossible for them to have anything to do with a pirate corps like the Extreme Bandit Corps. The circle of mercenary corps is actually very small. If Yin Fengwei really did something like this, he definitely wouldn't be able to hide it. Ding Meng sighed. How many people are left in our base? Silman's face darkened. 40,000, but now there are less than 500. Ding Meng was stunned. They were all killed? Silman helplessly closed his eyes, the muscles on his face twitching involuntarily. That's the people you see in the basement. The rest were all martyred. Ding Meng clenched his teeth again. What about the brothers? Something shiny suddenly dripped from the corner of Silman's eyes. His voice sounded very strange, as if he was trying hard to suppress his grief and anger. His voice was exceptionally low and hoarse. They were all good boys. None of them were cowards. None of them ran away, and none of them gave up on the people here. They all fought until the very last moment before collapsing. Of the remaining 400 or so people, many of them were saved by them. Little Liang was lucky. When he came back from his trip, he happened to see this group of pirates taking off and luckily survived. Now, he's the only one left on the ground to collect the corpses. Stop talking. Ding Meng suddenly interrupted him and said hatefully, I don't care where these pirates are now. Even if they run to the ends of the earth, I'll find them. Hearing this, Meng Yin roughly understood the whole story. She could not help but feel a burst of anger. These are tens of thousands of ordinary people. They were killed just like that. They even kidnapped all the women. This is a crime. It's simply outrageous. It's more vicious than plundering the devouring world. Ding Meng suddenly regained his calm and said expressionlessly, The people here died because of me. Don't worry. Even if they die, I won't let them die in vain. Silman reached out and grabbed Ding Meng's sleeve. Brother Ding, I don't mean to blame you. Without your and Miss Chu's help, the people here wouldn't have survived. Don't be impulsive. The Chief Commander and Captain Gulaga already know about this. They're on their way. I believe our Green Arrow Corps will not remain indifferent to this matter. Well, I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay here and wait for them to come. Ding Meng turned his head and said to the four-eyed man, Is there a medical cabin on the carrier? Yes. The four-eyed man answered affirmatively. 8 Norse Empire's Angel 3 general medical cabins. This big brother's hands and feet can definitely be repaired. The people below can be completely cured. I guarantee that everyone will recover within a day. As he answered, he winked at Mousie. Mousie also understood and said seriously, Brother Ding, let us do something. This place is too miserable. We can't stand it anymore. Ding Meng nodded. I'll have to trouble you two to save people. Carry the captain to the starship first. Chapter 2:13. Naturally, there was a stretcher prepared in the basement in case of emergency. When the two men lifted Solomon up, Ding Meng also slowly got up and looked at Ah Xiao in the corner in the distance. Unexpectedly, Solomon, who was on the stretcher, grabbed Ding Meng again and whispered, Don't go over there. Why? Ding Meng did not understand. Solomon shook his head with a pleading look on his face. Let her be alone for a while. She has suffered too much shock. That being said, Ding Meng was still worried about Ah Xiao and Xiao Shanzi. This was because along the way, there was no lack of children among the corpses. Many of the children were not killed by energy guns or laser guns, but by sharp weapons that pierced through their bodies. Ding Meng was also an expert in cold weapons. He could tell at a glance that many of the children were running in groups of 2 or 3, and the sharp weapons behind them directly pierced them to death at the same time. Most importantly, they killed the children and even cut off their heads. What was the meaning of this? The methods of this extreme pirate troop were so vicious and despicable that it was hard not to be angry. Shuyan's scalp was also tingling. She could not help but say, What's wrong with the Holy Grail Federation now? Why are such galactic pirates still allowed to exist? Can't the Federation's patrol fleet even deal with pirates? She had stayed on the Poison Barrier planet for many years and definitely did not know about the outside world. Meng Yin could only sigh and explain, Annie Shuyan, this extreme pirate troop was not originally like this. Shuyan looked at her strangely and said in a stiff tone, I want to see how this galactic pirate troop is different from other galactic pirates. Meng Yin said, the Extreme Pirate Troop was originally a bounty hunter mercenary group officially registered in the Federation. You should know the founder. His name is Lu Jinfeng. Xu Yin was stunned. Lu Jinfeng, the deputy commander of the Zerdal Frontier Fleet? Meng Yin nodded with a heavy expression. After he left the Federation, he created the Extreme Bandit Mercenary Group. Just like the Green Arrow Group, they did bounty missions in the beginning. Later, they died in the Fertile Chalk Star system due to some unknown mission. His son, Lu Ming, took over the mercenary group. The mercenary group slowly changed its nature and became what it is today. However, Lu Jinfeng had a lot of friends when he was alive and had a wide network of connections. Regardless of whether it was the Federation or the forces in outer space, he had a lot of ways to deal with them. Furthermore, the Extreme Bandit Mercenary Group rarely entered the jurisdiction of the Federation, so the higher-ups turned a blind eye to them. Xu Yin's expression didn't look good, but that's not a reason for his son to run amok. Nightmare lowered his head and said, I've also heard that some of the leaders of the Extreme Pirate Troop have a perverted hobby. They believe that a child's brain and a woman's placenta are great supplements. So, Xu Yin's expression changed, and she quickly interrupted him. Nonsense. A bunch of nonsense. I've studied the medical science of the Holy Grail Federation for decades. These fallacies have been overturned hundreds of years ago. How can anyone believe this? They're so stupid and disgraceful. While the two of them were talking, Ding Meng walked quietly to the corner in the distance. Xiao seemed to have sensed someone approaching at this moment. Her pupils suddenly shrank, and she hugged Xiao Shanzi tightly. Her whole body curled into a ball, and her face was full of horror. Go away, go away, go away. My Xiao Shanzi is asleep. Don't disturb him, he's sleeping. Go away, go away, go away. She sounded like she was crying, and Ding Meng's heart softened again. He said softly, Xiao, don't be afraid. I'm back. I'm Ding Meng. Ding Meng. It would have been better if he had not spoken, but the moment he spoke, Xiao became even more afraid. She sat on the ground and kicked her feet, crying desperately. Go away quickly. Regiment Commander, Captain, Xiao Yu, where are you? Come and save me. Come and save Xiao Shanzi, sob, sob, sob. She was tossing and turning, but Xiao Shanzi, who was in her arms, did not wake up. He lay on her shoulder, but did not move. Ding Meng's heart sank completely. When he came down earlier, his attention was all on Salmon, and he did not use his telekinesis vision to scan carefully. Now that he was close, he suddenly realized that Xiao was not carrying Xiao Shanzi, but a dead body. Xiao Shanzi's heart had been pierced by a sharp weapon like a sword, and his entire face had been flattened. Someone had probably wanted to cut off Xiao Shanzi's head, and Xiao had risked her life to save it. Xiao Shanzi, who had to train every day when he woke up, could no longer practice the army boxing. Xiao Shanzi, who was innocent and naive, could no longer wait until the day he became an origin ability user. Xiao Shanzi, whom Ding Meng thought would grow up in the future, would never be able to. Because the wound had already congealed and turned black, the blood had dried, and the corpse had become smelly. Xiao was still holding it tightly in her arms. Why did Salmon stop him from going over? Because Salmon had long known that Xiao's mind was no longer normal. She could barely accept the death of her husband, but her son had died so tragically. She no longer had any hope. The huge shock had driven her crazy. At this moment, Ding Meng's eyes finally burst with anger. There had never been a time when he was angrier than this. When Xiao Si died, there was more helplessness than anger. When Yuman and Zhuamin were beaten up, he only felt that Jiafa, Hong Mei, and the others were abominable. When Randy died, although he was also angry, it was more because he was facing a strong enemy. However, this time he was truly angry. This group of pirates not only burned, killed, robbed, and raped, but they also ate humans and even children. They were simply a group of wild beasts. They were even worse than wild beasts. Although wild beasts also ate humans, They would only take the initiative to attack humans when they were starving. But what about humans? Even if they ate and drank to their heart's content, they would still eat humans in all kinds of ways. Ding Ming's monstrous anger simply shot straight to the top of his head. He could not suppress it no matter how hard he tried. He had already opened up his hand, and his origin ability automatically activated. A wave of heat surged in the basement, and the murderous aura contained within caused the people around him to tremble. He stood straight, and his entire person was like an unsheathed blade. Mr. Ding Ming Yin plucked up her courage and patted his shoulder from behind. Ding Ming suddenly turned his head, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Ming Yin helplessly said, "Let Aunt Shuyan take a look. Maybe there's still hope." Ding Ming took a deep breath, forcefully suppressing his anger, and withdrew his origin ability. At this time, Shuyan also activated her origin ability. Her entire body seemed to be emitting rings of golden energy, and she looked like an angel who had walked out from the holy light. This was the healing energy emitted by mutation-type origin ability user, Doctor. It could accelerate the target's growth and reduce the target's negative emotions. It had a very good soothing effect. Sure enough, as soon as Shuyan walked forward, Ah Qiao slightly returned to normal. At the very least, she no longer cried and shouted. Shuyan stretched out her hands and gently said, "Ah Qiao, don't be afraid. I'm Dr. Shuyan. Let me take a look at Xiao Shanzi." Ah Qiao hesitated, but she was still unwilling to let go. Shuyan stretched out her hand and gently stroked Ah Qiao's yellow hair. A stream of green origin ability wrapped around Ah Qiao's head. Ah Qiao's eyes slowly closed, and she gradually fell asleep. Only then did Shuyan gently carry Xiao Shanzi and press her hand against Xiao Shanzi's chest. Just like her, Xiao Shanzi's body also emitted golden energy. After pressing for about 2 minutes, Shuyan turned her head to look at Ding Ming and helplessly shook her head. "We're too late. I can no longer sense the child's spirit body. It should have completely dissipated." A spirit body was the consciousness energy that remained after a human's physical body had completely died. In other words, it was the so-called soul. It could only exist in the form of electric ions in an electromagnetic field. If a complete spirit body was found in time, it could still be attached to a crystal energy artificial body. However, a crystal energy artificial body was not a physical body. Ding Ming looked at the faceless Xiao Shanzi and sighed slightly. He did not say anything, but Shuyan and Meng Yin could sense the complicated feelings in his heart from his expressionless face. He had feelings for this place. It was not only because Salman had saved him before, but also because he had always struggled in a difficult life. The thing he did not want to see the most was such inhumane behavior. Fortunately, after Shuyan examined Ah Qiao, she said, "Ah Qiao can be treated. She wasn't violated and only suffered some minor injuries. Her brain's nerves are in a mess. The medical pod can treat her. I'll treat her wounds first. She's severely malnourished." Ding Ming lowered his head and said, "Thank you." And Shuyan shook her head and said, "I'm a doctor. It's my duty to treat these ordinary people." Ding Ming turned around and said, "Sister Yin, I'll have to trouble you to help the injured people here up." Meng Yin nodded and said, "No problem." The 400 or so injured people in the basement were all elderly people. Fortunately, their injuries were not too serious. Only a small number of them had lost their arms and legs, and most of them had only suffered bruises or burns. Of course, this was also conceivable. With Salman and his group of young brothers, they would definitely prioritize saving those with light injuries. There was no way to save those who were seriously injured. Everyone could barely protect themselves from the hail of bullets, so it was much better to give up on a portion of them than to let everyone die. Since the carrier ship was parked far away in the snow, and these elderly people were not origin energy users, they could not withstand the cold at all. As such, Ding Ming simply used his origin energy to form a spherical thermal energy field with a diameter of 80 meters. It protected these 400 or so people as they walked out of the basement and toward the carrier ship in a mighty manner. It was not the first time these elderly people had seen the tragic situation outside, but it was definitely the first time they had seen the aftermath of the tragedy on the ground. Almost everyone's relatives had died or disappeared in this disaster, but these people did not cry out in grief or despair. They just walked forward numbly. They had spent almost all their lives fighting against space pirates. What kind of disaster had they not seen before? Thus, they did not cry. At this point, they no longer had any tears to shed. Chapter 214. It was impossible for Ding Meng and the others to take care of the wounded. The 8 medical cabins were also operating at full capacity. Fortunately, the people from Planet Poison Barrier were all doctors, so they could basically take care of the wounded on a one-to-one basis. The supplies on the transport ship were also well prepared, especially highly polymerized nutrient solutions and healing agents. They filled up 5 cabins. The commander must have deliberately prepared them to curry favor with Ding Meng. In that case, Ding Meng owed the commander a small favor. After 2 days of busy work on the transport ship, a flashing green that finally appeared in the night sky of planet KV-303. The Green Arrow Corps' fleet had finally arrived. 3 huge transport starships hovered in space. Then, 40 to 50 transport ships flew out from inside, passed through the atmosphere, and landed around the transport ship one after another. Silman had completely recovered after receiving treatment from the medical cabin. He was now standing at the gate of the transport ship, waiting. The transport starships had obviously detected the situation on the ground while they were still in space. Therefore, as soon as the starships landed, a large number of hunters from the Green Arrow Corps spread out in an orderly manner. Those who cleaned up the battlefield drove robots to start shoveling corpses, removing debris, moving debris, and spraying disinfectants. Those who transported the supplies were all intelligent robots. In fact, these robots were a bit like engineering vehicles, but they were operated by advanced intelligent programs. The repair team was purely made up of hunters. Everyone rushed towards the spaceport. The raging fire had burned for an entire week in such cold weather without extinguishing. It was enough to show how fierce and tragic the fierce battle was at that time. The 6 or 7 people who stepped on the snow and walked toward the transport ship on foot were the upper echelons of the Green Arrow Corps. The person walking at the front of the group was wearing a very ordinary Corps hunter uniform, but he was tall, his steps steady, his face handsome, and his bearing extraordinary. This person was the chief commander of the Green Arrow Corps, Fong Jinghao. When they were still 5 or 6 meters apart, Fong Jinghao extended his right hand to Silman and quickened his pace. As the 2 hands tightly clasped together, Fong Jinghao's left hand slowly gripped Silman's shoulder and shook it hard. He did not speak, but his solemn expression and action were enough to explain everything. Silman then turned around and introduced, "Commander, this is Brother Ding Meng." Fong Jinghao also extended his hand in a friendly manner. "Hello, Brother Ding. On behalf of our Green Arrow Bounty Hunter Corps, I would like to extend my highest respect to you. You have done a lot for our Corps, which makes me feel ashamed." "Captain Fong, you're too polite." Ding Meng's reaction was very calm. The moment he shook hands with Fong Jinghao, he could already feel that this Fong Jinghao was most likely an origin ability user of the metal system. His palm prints had already mutated and were as hard as a steel alloy. The slight movement of origin energy in his palm told Ding Meng that the Green Arrow's captain's origin energy was quite pure. He estimated that his rank was not below beginner war reverent. The person behind Fong Jinghao was naturally Galaja. Galaja's expression was just as solemn. Everyone exchanged a few simple greetings and didn't say much. At this time and place, it was really not suitable to talk too much. However, other than Fong Jinghao, Galaja, and their 2 followers, there was another unfamiliar face. This person was the same as Fong Jinghao. Looking at his age, he should be middle-aged. He was slightly short and had a slightly plump figure. He wore a tailored suit and was probably an ordinary person. However, he looked quite dignified. Ding Meng now knew that this was the deputy commander of Phoenix Planet No. 3 space station, Zhuang Weiming. The Holy Grail Federation couldn't remain indifferent to the tragedy that happened on planet KV-303. They had to respond. However, Zhuang Weiming's official rank was indeed a little low. Behind Zhuang Weiming was a man in a suit. These two people were obviously much younger, but their strength was quite good. The slight aura they exuded was actually the slight fluctuation of a high-level warrior. They must have followed to protect Zhuang Weiming's safety. This group of people entered the carrier ship. It was not suitable for Xu Yin and the others to show their faces. Almost everyone returned to the rest area and the medical area. In the rest area of the control hall, Fang Jinghao, Zhuang Weiming, Ding Ming, Salman, and Galaja sat on the sofa. Yu Yang served hot tea. The Green Arrow Corps still had to show the most basic etiquette when the commander of the space station came. Of course, no one was in a mood to drink tea and chat. Zhuang Weiming simply went straight to the point. Jinghao, everyone saw the situation here in space just now. I won't go into the details. My suggestion is that since this place has become like this, why don't we just move and find a planet with a better environment to settle the rest of the people? After all, the Green Arrow Corps has been working hard for these people. I think it's best to look forward. There was nothing wrong with what he said, but there was a big problem when it came from his mouth. He came to planet KV-303 on behalf of the Holy Grail Federation. His every word and action represented the Federation's reaction to this matter. Now, he had made his stance clear, but this stance had nothing to do with the extreme pirates. This was not the original purpose of the Green Arrow Corps inviting him here. Brother Zhuang, that makes sense. Fang Jinghao's expression did not change. His face was very calm. But moving isn't an easy thing. The people here have lived here for generations. They may not leave their home. But the environment of this planet has already become so bad. You have to find a way to persuade everyone. When he said this, Zhuang Weiming shrugged. He was just short of saying, whether you move or not is your own business. It has nothing to do with us. Fang Jinghao still said calmly, Brother Zhuang, we also made a request to the Federation Security Council. Brother Zhuang, we, the Green Arrow Corps, also responded to the call of the Federation Security Department to do our best to maintain the stability of the observant star system. Since we have occupied part of Nebula KV-3545, we naturally have to do our best to fulfill our obligations. Looking at all the major corps in outer space, the Green Arrow Corps is the only one that has really done our best over the years. It's not that the others haven't fulfilled their obligations. It's just that we have put in more effort and shouldn't get the same result as KV-303. What do you think? Fang Jinghao's words were quite skillful. Not only did he cleverly lead the conversation back to the right track, but he also used the name of the Federation Security Department to pressure people. After all, the tragedy had happened. The dead could not be brought back to life, but the reputation of the Green Arrow Corps could not be tarnished. If the Holy Grail Federation could come here once, there would definitely be a second time, a third time, a fourth time, or even a countless number of times. If the Holy Grail Federation did not respond strongly to this, the other party would only become more unscrupulous, and the consequences would be more serious than one could imagine. The Green Arrow Corps hoped that the Federation could intervene in this matter, but they had no other choice. In terms of financial resources, the Green Arrow Corps was not as good as Sirius. In terms of transportation, the Green Arrow Corps was not as good as Rating. In terms of combat power, the Green Arrow Corps was far inferior to the Dragon Slaying Corps. Furthermore, the combat power of the Extreme Pirate Corps was not weak. Even if the Green Arrow Corps could borrow money from Sirius, transfer starships from Rating, and recruit experts from Dragon Slaying Corps, not to mention whether this counterattack would work or not, they were afraid that the Federation would intervene with the reason of safety and stability when the fight was in the heat of the moment. Therefore, Fang Jinghao invited Zhuang Weiming to planet KV-303. It seemed that he was trying to mediate through diplomatic means, but in fact, it was a wise move. It couldn't be helped. Once a person was in a certain position, they had to consider everything from all aspects. Fang Jinghao's real intention was actually the same as Sleeman and Galagas. Because of this incident, the Holy Grail Federation would send a patrol fleet to encircle and annihilate the extreme pirate corps. When the time came, the Green Arrow Corps would follow. They would not let those heartless bastards go. Now that Fang Jinghao had pointed out the problem, Zhuang Weiming had to accept it. He took a sip of water and said earnestly, "Jinghao, we have been old friends for many years. Let's skip the pretense. Back then, when the Green Arrow Corps was allowed to enter KV-303, I also contributed. I feel that I have the right to say some harsh words." Fang Jinghao immediately nodded. "Brother Zhuang, you are too humble. You have contributed greatly. Please speak. We are all ears." Zhuang Weiming continued. "Let me be frank. You say this incident is big, but for Planet Phoenix Space Station, this kind of thing happens every day in outer space. The Federation can't do anything about it. You say it's small. Tens of thousands of people dying all of a sudden is definitely not a joke. I can record this incident and report it to the higher-ups. I'm also willing to help supervise the process. Can you send it to the military? I can't promise you anything. Even if I could, would the military be willing to send out a fleet? That's another unknown. And these aren't the key issues. The key is that we have to follow the standard procedure and ask the Federation for help. This process takes a very long time. If we are late, it will take 3 to 5 months. If we are late, it will take 2 to 3 years." He paused and continued. "Jinghao, we've been friends for many years. To be honest, if I can make the decision, I'll help you without hesitation. But I'm really sorry about this. I hope you can try to think positively." After saying this, Fang Jinghao immediately fell into deep thought. Putting aside the Federation's final decision on this matter, 2 to 3 years was too long. Green Arrow could not afford to wait, and neither could the victims. Perhaps after 2 to 3 years, this incident would be forgotten by everyone. Salmon finally could not hold it in any longer. "Station Commander Zhuang, our Holy Grail Federation is a country that values humanitarianism the most. Are we just going to let those abominable pirates go? Let them continue to do whatever they want." Logically speaking, Salmon did not have the right to directly ask Zhuang Weiming questions in this kind of discussion, especially questions that were of a questioning nature. However, considering that such a tragedy had just happened on this planet, Zhuang Weiming could more or less understand Salmon's feelings. He still patiently explained, "Captain Salmon, the Federation will definitely not ignore this. But it is precisely because our Holy Grail Federation values humanitarianism that any official action must be supported by law, passed by Parliament, and authorized by the military. Only then can the patrol fleet carry out military operations. Otherwise, we will not be able to answer to all the citizens." Salmon was not good at dealing with these officials, so he could not understand the true meaning behind his words. However, he felt that the other party's words made sense. For a moment, he did not know how to answer. However, at this moment, a cold voice rang out. "What you're saying is that the people who died were not citizens, but refugees. So what if they died? It doesn't matter. It's not worth the Federation sending out a fleet. So if tens of thousands of citizens died, the Federation will definitely send out a fleet? Is that what you're saying?" Obviously, only a straight man like Ding Meng would dare to raise such a sharp question. Chapter 215. Zhuang Weiming frowned slightly. He had to admit it, even if he didn't want to. Ding Meng's words were very straightforward and tactful. That was exactly what the Federation meant. If tens of thousands of citizens of the Federation had been massacred, then the pirates would have been reduced to ashes a long time ago. There were some things that could not be said casually. Ding Meng could be direct, but Zhuang Weiming definitely could not be direct. Therefore, he could only patiently continue to explain. "Mr. Ting, I don't think your understanding is correct. As long as it's within the observable star system of the Holy Grail Federation, we will definitely not stand by and do nothing. I personally feel very sorry for this incident, and I'm also very distressed. I'm also trying my best to find a solution. As long as it's within my power, I'll definitely do my best to help these people." Ding Meng really couldn't be bothered to listen to his vague answer. It seemed to make sense, but in fact, it was all nonsense and didn't have any substantial content. "You willing to help?" "I believe that," Ding Meng said in a deep voice. "But you said that you won't stand by and do nothing." "Then I'm sorry. From the beginning until now, you've been standing by and doing nothing." As soon as he said this, Sleeman and Galaga's expressions changed at the same time. Ding Meng was extraordinarily bold. He actually dared to speak to the commander of the space station in such a manner. For outer space armies, the space station was really too intimidating. Armies like the Green Arrow might not be afraid of Sirius, Dragon Slayer, or other organizations, but when faced with the space station, they could only bow their heads and bend their backs. After all, the various actions of armies were largely restricted by the various fleets docked at the space station at any time. Moreover, their assistance also depended on the space station's temporary dispatch and emergency operations. However, Zhuang Weiming's self-control was very good. No one could see the change in his expression. "Mr. Ting, when Planet KV-303 sent us an emergency signal for help that day, we also sent 2 Battle Dragon-class destroyer starships as reinforcements." As he spoke, he turned to look at Fong Jianghao. "Captain Jianghao, I'm not talking nonsense, am I?" This question was nothing more than a reminder to Fong Jianghao. Restrain your people. Don't be impudent. Fong Jianghao was as still as a statue. With his status, it was impossible for him to be as straightforward as Ding Meng. Coincidentally, Ding Meng was not one of Green Arrow's men, so he could play along with him. Ding Meng suddenly sneered. "Is Planet Phoenix 3 space station very far from here? At most, the destroyer should have arrived at Planet KV-303 within 4 hours. In the end, this group of pirates bombarded this place for 2 whole hours and then brazenly walked down to burn and loot for more than 5 hours. Could it be that the performance of a Battle Dragon-class destroyer is inferior to those few broken ships of the pirates? Everyone was stunned. It would have been better if Ding Meng had not mentioned it. Now that he mentioned it, everyone suddenly realized that they had overlooked a lot of details about this incident. Zhuang Weiming said casually, "The 2 destroyers did not travel with the patrol fleet in the first place. They were originally docked at the maintenance port for maintenance. We had to deploy them in an emergency. I don't know much about the technology, but Mr. Ting, what you said puzzles me." Ding Meng stared at him. "Yes, I'm puzzled too. As far as I know, Planet Phoenix 3 space station is not a miniature space station. Hundreds of ships of all sizes enter and leave the space station every day. However, on the eve of the pirate attack, no patrol fleet stopped by the space station. It's a bit strange." Zhuang Weiming's expression did not change. On that day, the port was undergoing a 12-hour temporary maintenance. All ports were closed, and entry and exit were suspended. It's normal that no combat fleet stopped by. Ding Meng said, "Maintenance is normal, but the quantum system of the space station was not maintained, was it?" Zhuang Weiming frowned again. "What do you mean?" Ding Meng said, "Quantum communication and quantum detection were not turned off, were they? On the day of the attack, there were so many spaceships of the pirate fleet flying everywhere. There were hundreds of survivors. Did they fly all the way here?" Zhuang Weiming's face darkened. He finally understood what the other party was questioning. The pirate fleet must have carried a large number of spaceships in a single or several large starships when they suddenly broke into the nebula of KV-3545. From the moment they entered to the arrival of KV-303, it took at most 10 to 20 minutes. If the space station did not detect their whereabouts during this period of time, no one would believe it. Moreover, the pirate starship must have been a high-risk object in the Federation's vision. When a high-risk object like a bomb suddenly appeared in the observation area, the space station did not send out any warning signal. This was too illogical. Zhuang Weiming sighed. "This could just be a coincidence." Ding Meng said disdainfully, "You have too many coincidences." When the pirate fleet was coming to the nebula of KV-3545, the space station happened to be under maintenance, so the patrol fleet had to continue patrolling. When the space station knew that it was the pirate fleet that entered the observation area of the Federation, the space station happened to not send out any warning signal. When the pirate fleet was killing innocent people on KV-303, the space station's destroyer happened to be late. When the pirate fleet finished their evil deed and left, the space station's destroyer happened to arrive. After a symbolic tour of the sky, the space station's destroyer also went back. There are so many coincidences. Don't tell me that this is what happened. He had learned these details from Silman, Yu Liang, and many other survivors in the past 2 days. With a lot of details gathered together, Ding Ming knew the whole story better than anyone else. At this time, he stared at Ding Ming with a sharp gaze, but the conclusion he came to was sharper than the blade. Some disasters are natural disasters, but I'm afraid they're man-made, and they're not created by the enemy. Zhuang Weiming's expression finally changed. Are you questioning the Holy Grail Federation's space station? Compared to his surprise, Ding Ming calmed down and replied indifferently, "This is the truth. It has nothing to do with questioning." Zhuang Weiming's expression was terrible. How the space station should operate and how we should do our work, you're not qualified to tell me. As soon as he said this, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. Fang Jinghao could not help but cough softly. Ahem, Brother Zhuang, Brother Ding is young and impetuous. He's not in a good mood, so he doesn't speak politely. Please forgive him. Like hell, I'll believe you. Zhuang Weiming's mind was clear. This ordinary-looking young man in front of him did not look like a young man at all. He was clearly an experienced man with sharp eyes. It would be strange if he was not arranged by Fang Jinghao. However, even though he knew this, he could not vent his anger on Fang Jinghao because Ding Ming started again. We've been arguing here for a long time, and I only saw you repeatedly saying that you wanted to help. As for how to help, you didn't give a specific explanation. Anyway, you didn't mention a word about the extreme pirate troop. Don't you think it's strange? It's as if there's poison in this family, and you'll be poisoned to death as soon as you mention their name. According to your tone, these are not the key problems. The most important thing is that Planet Phoenix of the Holy Grail Federation did not send a military representative or a persuasive official here. Your position and official title have already explained their attitude towards this place. Zhuang Weiming suddenly stood up. His face was red because Ding Ming had not only ruthlessly exposed the Federation's intentions, but also ruthlessly insulted him. Zhuang Weiming took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He said coldly, "I don't care what you mean. Young man, I'll give you a piece of advice. Illness comes from the mouth, and disaster comes from the mouth. Watch your mouth. That's the greatest responsibility you have for yourself." Ding Ming also stood up. "Don't worry. You'd better remember this. Don't wait until the day I find out about the problem and come looking for you in person." At this time, the advanced warriors behind Zhuang Weiming could no longer be puppets. Both of them quietly began to circulate their origin energy. A wave of heat and a wave of coldness surged in the resting area. Silman and Gulago were frightened. They quickly pulled Ding Ming back. "Don't say too much, Brother Ding." Although Zhuang Weiming was quite angry, he still maintained a happy expression in front of Fang Jinghao. "Jinghao, the matters at the space station are very busy. I'm very sorry. I have to rush back to deal with them. Please understand. I'll take my leave first." Fang Jinghao also had a resentful expression on his face. It was unknown whether or not he was faking it, but he replied sincerely, "Brother Zhuang, I'll send you off." It was only after Zhuang Weiming left and Yu Liang poured another cup of hot water that Ding Ming's mood calmed down a little. Little Rascal also hurriedly appeared. "Hee, Ding Ming, your eloquence has improved a lot recently. Look at that guy's flustered and exasperated appearance just now." Ding Ming was indeed a little emotional. It was mainly because Xiao's appearance in the past 2 days had stimulated him. Under the dual treatment of Shuiyin and the medical pod, Xiao's wounds were all healed. Her mind had also returned to normal. However, after her mind returned to normal, she stayed in the break room and did not come out again. She did not eat or drink, nor did she take any nutrient solutions. She just sat there alone and cried silently. Ding Ming and the others did not dare disturb her, afraid that they would agitate her again. However, Ah Chao's health was not good to begin with. She could not bear to use the food and clothes that she usually ate and left them all for little Shanzi. She looked like she was malnourished. After crying for a long time, she collapsed on the bed. When Xu Yin and the others helped her recover, she was still the same. Her tears just could not stop flowing. Ah Chao's normal state of mind was better than her abnormal state of mind. Living in an illusion, at least it was less painful. Ding Meng saw all of this. Every time he saw it, the anger in his heart would not be appeased. Instead, it would slowly rise. Originally, he had also accepted Salmon's advice. Don't be rash. When the chief commander and the people from the Federation arrive, they will naturally have an explanation. However, he did not expect Zhuang Weiming to say such a thing. Not only could he not tolerate it, even Salmon and the others could not tolerate it. Xiao Ai finally spoke. Actually, from a legal point of view, the Holy Grail Federation has no obligation to send out a fleet to carry out a military operation when the Green Arrow Corps was attacked. My database shows that in the current laws of the Federation, there is no obligation to provide assistance to refugees. Chapter 216. I know, Ding Meng replied quietly. In fact, what he was really angry about was not the Federation's indifference, but Zhuang Weiming's attitude. This was just like the quarrel between Su Weimin and Jia Fa in the Christine Academy. The nature was the same. Zhuang Weiming was just going through the motions to comfort him. With his status, it was already considered condescending for him to come here. In Ding Meng's mind, it was fine that Zhuang Weiming did not mention the extreme pirates, but he did not even look at the survivors here. From his attitude, he could tell that Zhuang Weiming did not care about the tens of thousands of people who were killed. It was fine if they died. Just leave them and continue to live well. It would be best if they moved out of the observation star system. As for whether they lived or died, it had nothing to do with the Federation. This was where Ding Meng was really angry. Even though he knew that these tens of thousands of people had suffered because of him, he had a new understanding of the situation in his fury. Ever since he fused with the K-virus on the Dead Silent Star, he had been running away. After returning to the world of normal people, he tried his best to keep a low profile and train quietly. He tried his best not to get involved in any trouble. However, this didn't mean that trouble and muddy water wouldn't come to him. As his strength continued to increase, the trouble in the future would be even greater, and the muddy water would also become more muddy. Perhaps in the eyes of his enemies, his actions had always been a form of self-evasion. After arguing with Zhuang Weiming today, he finally understood that there were some things that could never be compromised. Whether it was in the Norse Empire or the Holy Grail Federation, they would not give you a chance to compromise. He suddenly realized that normal human society was no different from the Black Gold base. If you wanted to live, you had to fight with your life on the line. If you wanted justice, you could not rely on the law, so you had to rely on force. There was no room for you to choose at all. At this time, Fang Jinghao had already sent Zhuang Weiming away. As soon as Zhuang Weiming left, Shuiyin and the others appeared in the control hall. Shuiyin had heard the conversation between Ding Meng and Zhuang Weiming clearly with her perception. She could not help but sigh. I didn't expect that after so many years, the officials of the Federation would become like this. Ren Tianlan, who was next to them, was also very angry. A bunch of cowards. Will it kill you to be a little responsible? Fang Jinghao obviously knew what had happened on planet KV-303. He took the initiative to shake hands with Shuiyin and the others. Dr. Shui, Senior Ren, I've heard a lot about you. I'm really happy to see that you're still alive. Thank you very much for your help. Shuiyin was still polite to Fang Jinghao. After all, they still needed to rely on the Green Arrow Army in the future. Commander Fang, we have disturbed you. We are really sorry. Fang Jinghao laughed heartily and said, Dr. Shui, you're too kind. If you didn't cure the poison back then, this place would probably be a poisonous swamp of the devouring world today. You could stay in my base for as long as you want. I'll always welcome you. Shuiyin smiled and said, Thank you so much, Captain Fang. Fang Jinghao said modestly, You're welcome. The person who should be thanking you is me. Without Brother Ding's help, many people would not have been able to survive. Furthermore, the matter with the Celestial Wolf Army also showed by Yu's true colors. Ding Ming also walked to the main control panel. Sorry, Commander Fong. We caused you trouble just now. Fong Zhenghao sighed slightly. Brother Ding, I can't blame you for this matter. In fact, I received a notice from the Federation a few days ago that the chief executive of Planet Phoenix was going to send someone over. When I saw that it was Zhuang Weiming, I guessed that this would be the result. Everyone understood this. Just as Ding Ming had said, Zhuang Weiming was only the deputy commander of the space station. This official position was neither high nor low, but the key was that what did this tragedy have to do with him? It was not caused by the negligence of the deputy commander. Salmon came over. Commander, what should we do next? Fong Zhenghao said, rebuilding this place is inevitable. I have brought enough manpower and materials. It should be able to recover in a short period of time. He paused, and a cold light finally rose in his eyes. But we can't just let this pirate army go. Ding Ming stared at him. Commander, do you have a plan? Fong Zhenghao sighed again. Brother Ding, there are no outsiders here. To be honest, I couldn't help but applaud you when you argued with old Zhuang just now. But old Zhuang gave you such an answer because he had no other choice. I can understand why the Federation doesn't want to intervene. This pirate army is not the Celestial Wolf Army, and it is not as easy to deal with as you think. As he spoke, he reached out to open the interstellar map on the main control panel. After fiddling with it a few times, a new image appeared on the light screen. It was a huge yellowish-brown planet, but around the planet, there were large and small clusters of garbage drifting around. There were no less than 40 or 50 of them. After the image was enlarged, everyone found that these garbage clusters were actually large starships, but their bodies were covered with various patches. They looked tattered and looked like space garbage. Meng Yin immediately said, I know this place. This is Bogger Planet. Fong Zhenghao nodded. This is the lair of the pirate army. Everyone present was familiar with this planet. It was located on the flank of the Zeta 2-star field. If one looked at it horizontally, with the Zeta 2-star field as the center, the Holy Grail Federation was below, the Devourer Realm was above, and the Norse Empire was at the bottom left of the Devourer Realm. The three families were like three legs of a tripod, faintly in a state of confrontation. The Zeta 2-star field spanned between the Holy Grail Federation and the Devourer Realm, forming a natural border. No one dared to cross this minefield on a large scale. Just like the fertile chalk galaxy between the Norse Empire and the Black Frog race, it was a frontline war zone with a complicated situation. On the right side of the Zeta 2-star field, Bogger Planet was a separate existence that transcended the three families. Many years ago, an exploration company of the Federation discovered that Bogger Planet was rich in crystal ores. At the same time, they dug out the legendary inverse source crystal. This caused a sensation in the entire Federation. Countless people flocked to the planet, and companies of all sizes were stationed there. They invested huge amounts of money to conduct crazy mining. For a time, Bogger Planet became abnormally prosperous. Many rich and powerful people of the Federation became legends of wealth overnight on Bogger Planet. However, later, the war between the Federation and the Devourer Realm broke out, and this place suffered. First, the small companies went bankrupt one by one. Then, with the arrival of the Devourer Realm's army, the large companies were forced to give up and flee in panic. After the Devourer Realm took over, they probably also realized the value of the inverse source crystal. They did not pollute the planet on a large scale. Instead, they used the starships and equipment left behind by these companies to continue mining. Of course, with the counterattack of the Holy Grail Federation, the Devourer Realm also retreated. In the end, a super consortium of the Federation began to operate this place. After a few more decades of mining, the interior of the planet was riddled with holes. Everything of value was basically cleaned out. Bogger Planet could be considered to have been emptied. At this time, there was no need to think about it. The Super Consortium would definitely withdraw. With this withdrawal, Bogger Planet would become a barren land similar to a garbage dump. Who knew that at this time, another group of people would come. They would reuse the abandoned facilities and rebuild the underground space inside the planet that was as complicated as a maze. Then, they would repair and modify the outdated and broken starships in space, turning them into treasures. They would forcibly build a huge mercenary base. The leader of this group was Lu Jinfeng. After Lu Jinfeng, it was his son Lu Ming. After Lu Ming took over, he opened Bogger Planet to all the wanted criminals, illegal merchants, black market tycoons, and various outer space forces of the Federal Empire. They were all welcome to come and play. Over time, Bogger Planet became synonymous with the black market, refugee camps, slave markets, high-level mercenaries, and criminal concentration camps. Moreover, due to the various connections Lu Jinfeng had during his lifetime, many companies, consortiums, sects, and even big shots of the Federal Empire had some kind of relationship with Bogger Planet. The Extreme Pirate Unit was in charge of this place, and its name spread like wildfire. After all, the laws of the Federation could not bind this place. Lu Ming was also very smart. The Extreme Pirate Unit rarely entered the jurisdiction of the Federation or the Federation, and he never had a direct conflict with the Federation. He only caused trouble in outer space. Of course, the higher-ups of the Federation did not completely turn a blind eye to his unscrupulous actions. Every few years, someone would emerge and propose to sanction the Extreme Pirate Unit. Then why don't you sanction them? Ding Ming could not help but ask. Fang Jinghao let out a long sigh. There are many reasons. First of all, the various forces entrenched on Cyprus' ancient star are too complicated. There are all kinds of relationships behind them, involving many interest groups. Although there are always people who want to punish them, there are always people who jump out to oppose. He fiddled with the map again and zoomed in on the Zyrtl sector. Secondly, the biggest obstacle is the huge battlefield between the Federation and the Devourer world. A huge barrier composed of meteorite belts, waste, warship wreckage, all kinds of garbage, and poisonous creatures from the Devourer world was left on the right side of the sector. It could not be cleaned up, and has been stagnant there for many years. Ding Ming also noticed that this barrier was completely a strange gray nebula, like a strange river that circulated endlessly between the Zyrtl sector and Bogger Planet. Fang Jinghao explained, it is very difficult for ordinary spaceships to pass through this barrier, unless it is a phantom poison ship. With the technology and level of the Federation's fleet, it is not a problem for them to force their way through. The real difficulty is that once they set off, their first destination is the Zyrtl sector, and then they have to consider whether to enter or not. This is not a simple fleet operation, but a military expedition of the Federation. Everyone nodded. A single spaceship or a Space Force's starship can't be compared to a military fleet. A large fleet needs to consider all aspects, not only military issues, but also political issues. These aren't things that ordinary people can understand. Therefore, when a fleet goes on an expedition, it's best to not expect it to be fast. What's more, the Case sector was directly below the Holy Grail Federation, which was a completely different direction from the Zyrtl sector. If they really wanted to launch a military attack, which fleet would be dispatched? Where they take off from? These two simple questions would probably take a long time for the military and the Senate to debate. It was not difficult to understand Zhuang Weiming's feelings. If there was not a good reason, it would be difficult for the military to take action. However, do you think the Federation would make a big fuss over the death of tens of thousands of interstellar refugees? What would the taxpayers think of us? Of course, in Ding Ming's view, this reason was purely bullshit. Do you believe that I can disguise myself as a pirate and kill a group of King citizens? Let's see if you can still sit still. Chapter 217. Although he thought so, he could not say it out loud. Ding Ming looked at the map thoughtfully. If that's the case, then the pirates who attacked here definitely did not come from Cyprus Green Planet. It's unrealistic for them to fly such a long way here. Fang Jinghao nodded. In fact, the scale of this extreme pirate force is already very large. At least in the outer space of the Federation, its influence has penetrated all the major forces, and there is no lack of ability to deal with the various forces within the Federation. Ding Ming hesitated. What do you mean? Fang Jinghao looked at him, and his expression became serious. I can only say that in the argument with Zhuang Weiming just now, you analyzed many things well. I'm afraid that some things are man-made. Ding Ming was silent and said, it seems unrealistic to launch a large-scale counterattack now. Fang Jinghao was also silent. That was what he wanted to express. Besides, Green Arrow did not have the strength to launch a large-scale long-distance counterattack. Of course, this incident will not be over just like that. He closed the map and turned on his wristwatch. A mirror image of a person popped up on the light screen. This person was slightly plump and had a round face. Even if he did not smile, people could feel that there was a faint smile on his face. He was the kind of person who was harmless to humans and animals. Of course, it would be wrong to think so. Fang Jinghao took the initiative to explain. This person is called Hu Li. His current identity is a fourth-class citizen of the Holy Grail Federation. But according to my investigation, in fact, he secretly serves the extreme pirate force. This person has a brother called Hu Biao, who is the commander of the 4th Regiment of the Extreme Pirate Force. After all, he was the commander of a large regiment, so he was quite well informed. Salmon suddenly said, I remember. That day outside the cave, I heard the pirate leader being called Brother Biao. Could it be this Hu Biao? Fang Jinghao shook his head and said, there is no information to prove that this was done by Hu Biao, but I already have information to prove that the extreme pirate force wants to deal with Brother Ding. This business was secretly done by Hu Li. Ding Ming now fully understood Salmon's train of thought. Commander, are you saying that we should split into 2 groups? Fang Jinghao said, Hu Li is a citizen of the Federation. He's definitely in the Federation's territory. With everyone's status, it's impossible for him to enter the Federation. Therefore, I'll be the one running this line. At the very least, we need to know who commissioned him. Ding Ming asked, then, where is this Hu Biao now? Fang Jinghao said, we received news that he was no longer in Paradise Galaxy's encampment a week ago. Now, Hu Biao is on his way back to Bogger Planet. If he was the one who led the team to ambush us, the timing matches perfectly. This time, Sleeman and Galaga's hearts sank. If Hu Biao really returned to Cypress Grove, then the Green Arrow would not be able to do anything to him. Now, in the outer space forces, everyone knew that the Extreme Pirate had attacked the Green Arrow subbase. Perhaps the Extreme Pirate did not want to cause any more disputes, but if the Green Arrow's people could smoothly enter the Extreme Pirate's territory, then they should not even think about it. I'll go. Ding Ming's eyes flashed coldly. Whether this Bogger Planet is a dragon's den, a tiger's den, a sea of fire, or a mountain of knives, I have to go. I can't stay here for even a day. Fang Jinghao could understand his feelings. He was once young too. Which young man could endure such anger? In fact, Fang Zhenghao's ideal candidate was also Ding Ming. The series of deaths on planet KV-303 were all caused by Ding Ming. Ding Ming was the main culprit, and many things could only be completely solved by relying on the main culprit. Moreover, he also knew that in the Battle of Meteor City, Ding Ming had killed Ren Zhan, a high-level warrior with a deep foundation. Fang Zhenghao certainly did not believe that Ding Ming was a warlord, because it was not unusual for a low-level origin ability user to kill a high-level origin ability user. However, this proved one thing, and that was that Ding Ming was strong. At least the Green Arrow Corps could not send an expert of the same strength as Ding Ming. However, Fang Zhenghao also had his own worries. Brother Ding, I also hope that you can solve this matter, but now your identity has been exposed. Not to mention other things, the Extreme Pirate Troop is definitely watching you. The possibility of you going is too low. Chuan, who was on the side, suddenly said, Commander Fang Zheng, you don't have to worry about this. If Ding Ming can successfully reach Cypress Grove, we can guarantee that it will be difficult for others to discover his true identity. Fang Zhenghao was a little surprised. Oh, Meng Yin smiled and said, "We have this confidence." Looking at the two of them in high spirits, Ding Ming knew that they were not talking nonsense. It was not easy for Ren Tianlan to break the topic. He rubbed his palms and said eagerly, "Little brother Ding, let me accompany you. I haven't exercised my body for many years. This time, it's a good opportunity for me to practice. These bastards make me angry." Ding Ming thought for a moment and sighed. "Senior Ren, it's better for you to stay on planet KV-303. Your people don't even have a fixed foothold now. This carrier ship will be returned to the raiding corps sooner or later. It just so happens that the Green Arrow Corps is rebuilding their base. If you, a warlord, stay here, your safety will undoubtedly be more guaranteed." He had considered it carefully. If Ren Tianlan went with him, once a battle broke out, he would definitely be a powerful existence. The problem was that Ren Tianlan and his group had stayed on the Poison Barrier Star for too many years. Their information and knowledge had been completely out of touch with the outside world. Ren Tianlan had not seen many new things at all. If he encountered armors such as Hercules' Predator again, he would probably be dumbfounded. A battle was never a simple competition of force. It was more a game of experience, wisdom, strategy, momentum, luck, and many other complicated factors. Therefore, there were classics of the weak defeating the strong and the few fighting against the many. Shuiyin smiled and said, "Ding Meng is right. Old Ren, you'd better learn more before you go out." "Is that so?" Ren Tianlan retreated resentfully. As soon as he left, Salmon stepped forward and said, "Brother Ding, I'll go with you. We could take care of each other on the way." Seeing him clench his fists, Ding Meng could not help but smile. Then he said earnestly, "Captain, rebuilding the subbase is the most important thing for the Green Arrow Corps now. And the people here really can't do without you. Little you and the other brothers have done their best. You really can't have any more accidents. Now, Aunt Shuiyin and Senior Ren will stay here to help you. Isn't it better?" Of course, Ding Meng could not say that with the strength of a primary warrior, not to mention Cypress Star, even if he went to Meteor City to face the mercenaries of the Celestial Wolf Corps, his own safety would be a problem. Salmon obviously understood this, but he was still a little unwilling. He gritted his teeth and said, "Brother, if you really encounter those bastards, don't be soft-hearted. Kill as many as you can. Just treat it as killing for me." Ding Meng laughed involuntarily and patted him on the shoulder. "Don't worry, I won't be soft-hearted." At this time, Meng Yin straightened her back and stepped forward. She said seriously, "Mr. Ting, Cypress Star is a long way away. This is not something that can be done in a day or two. If people outside want to enter from the official route, they can only enter by taking the spaceship designated by the Celestial Wolf Corps. I'll go with you." Ding Meng did not object this time. He nodded and said, "Sister Yin is good." Meng Yin was undoubtedly a suitable candidate. Her strength was not bad. The key was that she had rich experience and extensive knowledge in space for a long time. She could adapt to changes. The battle in Meteor City showed that Meng Yan's ability to adapt to changes was very strong. Moreover, she had learned a divine skill like the Phantom Fantasy technique, which could provide a lot of invisible help to him. Secret manuals were different from cultivation methods, but they were far more powerful than cultivation methods. They could be encountered, but not sought. Just like armor for soldiers, they could not only improve their combat power, but also had many wonderful uses. 3 days later, Ding Meng officially set off for Luji Galaxy. A transport spaceship designated by the Celestial Wolf Corps was parked in outer space. Although the Celestial Wolf Corps welcomed people from all walks of life, it was not a place where any Tom, Dick, or Harry could enter. One had to buy a pass and board their designated Phantom Poison ship before they were allowed to enter. Fong Jinghao had made ample preparations for Ding Meng. He had gotten his hands on the pass a long time ago. It was said that the pass was priced at 3,000 star coins on the darknet. If one did not have connections, they might not be able to buy it, even if they had money. Secondly, he definitely could not use Green Arrow's spaceship to go to Luji Galaxy. The transport spaceship of the Assault Corps, was also not suitable to show up. Fong Jinghao had gotten a tattered, blazing shark spaceship from somewhere. The spaceship was piloted by Salmon, which was equivalent to personally sending Ding Meng there. In his own words, he had to do something for this matter. In addition to Meng Yin, Four Eyes and Harry were also traveling with Ding Meng. The two of them did not ask for this. On the contrary, the two of them were so afraid of death that they were completely forced by Meng Yin. Meng Yan's explanation was that they had to verify their identities when boarding the spaceship. Four Eyes and Harry used to be mercenaries of the Celestial Wolf Corps, so their identities were very suitable. The Celestial Wolf Corps would definitely think that everyone had defected from the mercenary corps and wanted to go to Cypress Planet to make a fortune. After all, Ding Meng of the Green Arrow Corps had just turned Meteor City upside down. It was normal for some mercenaries to be discouraged and not want to work anymore. In addition to these, Fong Jinghao also equipped Ding Meng with a new wristwatch model called Skylight Model 6. This Skylight wristwatch was a new product of the Holy Grail Federation. It was specially designed for rich citizens who traveled to outer space. It was more powerful than ordinary wristwatches in that it had a very unique ion communication function. It consumed very little energy and could be recharged instantly. The transmission distance of the signal was long enough. If it was in a star field near the Federation, it could directly connect to the Federation's nearest space station. The only small drawback was that this Skylight wristwatch was anonymous. If it was worn by a certified citizen, it could use more functions. Fong Jinghao had deposited 300,000 star coins into the currency system in the wristwatch. Ding Meng had never cared much about money, but this was a small token of appreciation from Fong Jinghao. The subbase had suffered a huge disaster because of Ding Meng, but the Green Arrow Corps had also received a lot of assistance because of Ding Meng. Now that Ding Meng was representing the Green Arrow Corps, the strength of a high-level warrior was worthy of this price. Chapter 218. The journey from the K-star system to the Lajian star system was yet another long interstellar journey. Ding Meng had been staying in his private lounge the entire time. His cultivation had undoubtedly improved tremendously during his time on planet V4, especially after consolidating his seventh origin and practicing various martial techniques. If he were to encounter another Battle Exalt level origin ability user on Cypress Ancient Planet, he had absolute confidence that he would be able to take care of them. Little Rascal obviously couldn't stay idle. You can't be called a Battle Exalt right now. Ding Meng was stunned. Why not? Little Rascal said. According to the standards of the Federation and the Empire, your Origin Energy Index has indeed reached the Battle Exalt level. However, in our eyes, you can't even be considered a warrior. At most, you're an advanced Origin ability user. Ding Meng said, Aren't you and Xiao AI's standards a bit too high? That's not it, Little Rascal explained. The reason we haven't let you cultivate any other techniques is because you still haven't fully mastered the Diamond Star technique. The Diamond Star technique is an 8-star technique? Ding Meng's eyes lit up. He had always thought that the Diamond Star technique was a 7-star technique. A 7-star technique was an existence that most Origin ability users could only look up to. Little Rascal's round face nodded. It's not just because it's an 8-star technique. It's also because the Diamond Star technique is your foundational technique. You haven't even mastered the foundational technique, so it's unreasonable for you to cultivate any other techniques. A true Origin ability user should also cultivate 1 or 2 related techniques in addition to their foundational techniques. They should also have at least 3 martial techniques of a certain level, as well as the relevant data. In fact, Ding Meng knew that Little Rascal had always allowed him to learn all sorts of martial techniques, but she had never allowed him to cultivate any other techniques. A large part of the reason was that their standards were too high. Normal techniques couldn't enter their eyes at all. Ding Meng's dazzling gold backpack was filled with dozens of technique chips that he had stolen from the Celestial Wolf Corps. Inside the sensory cabin, he had seen the names of the techniques. Most of them were 3-star techniques, such as the Heat Source Technique, Frost Technique, imperial wind technique, and tempered technique. The most common ones are the 4-star techniques, such as the dark ice dust technique and the source fishing technique. Not only did Little Rascal not like looking at these chips, but even Ding Ming himself wasn't interested. This mentality was similar to how you would lose your appetite for street food after enjoying a sumptuous meal at a luxurious restaurant. In fact, what Ding Ming was truly interested in at the moment were secret manuals. Meng Yan's Phantom Fantasy technique was a classic example. It could be transformed and imitated at any time. It could come and go without a trace, and it could go wherever it wanted. Unfortunately, Xu Yin had told him that he couldn't cultivate this secret manual. This biochemical secret manual conflicted too much with the thermodynamic element's origin. Forcefully cultivating it would only bring him harm. Furthermore, he had also asked Xu Yin about Lan Bing's transformation. Xu Yin was the authority in this area, and according to his description, she had answered him with certainty. Lan Bing's transformation was definitely not a secret manual. It was definitely a technique that could retain one's looks. It was at least a 4-star technique, and it could be said that she had cultivated it to perfection. Just as the discussion was getting heated, Little Rascal suddenly said, "Open the door. Someone's looking for you. It must be something." Only then did Ding Ming emerge from his meditative state. He raised his head and looked around. He saw that the person standing outside the door was Meng Yan. Meng Yan's current appearance was that of the Celestial Wolf Corps' Lu Fei. "Sister Yan, what's the matter?" Ding Ming pressed the switch on the coffee table, and the alloy door opened automatically. Meng Yan slowly walked in. "Mr. Ting, we're almost at Lu Ji Galaxy." Ding Ming noticed that she was holding a small dark green box. The material looked like the plants on planet V4. "What's this?" Meng Yan gently placed the box on the coffee table. She looked a little excited. "This is Auntie Xu Yin's personal collection, 1000 Shadow Foil." Ding Ming was a little surprised. That demonic tree from the devouring world? Meng Yan couldn't help but smile. "Yes, the phantom tree. I didn't expect Mr. Ting to know about it." The demonic shadow strange tree was an extremely precious and poisonous plant in the devouring world. It needed 10 years to grow. After the tree matured, it would grow feather-like branches. These feathers were colorful and ever-changing. They didn't have a specific shape at all. From afar, they looked like clusters of colors that were constantly changing. Only the monsters of the devouring world used a unique method to pluck them and then refine them into a material as thin as paper. This thing was called the 1000 Shadow Foil. The monsters could immediately transform into humans using the 1000 Shadow Foil. No matter how advanced the radar of the Federation's starship was, it couldn't scan the monsters' true bodies. In the war back then, this 1000 Shadow Foil was only equipped with a small number of elite troops of the devouring world. It was these monsters that had transformed into humans that caused the Federation's army to suffer a lot. Later, Xian and the others developed a spray that was specially used to restrain their transformation. Only then did the elite troops of the devouring world admit defeat. This thing was wonderful, but humans couldn't use it because the toxicity was too strong. Even an intermediate war elder like Rin Tianlan didn't dare to touch it. Meng Yan explained, "Actually, Annie Shuyan still has a lot of this poison. She couldn't bear to destroy it." Ding Ming could understand this point. Poison and antidote were the same in the eyes of doctors. The difference was their rarity. With such a precious material, even if it was highly toxic, which mutagenic doctor would be willing to throw it away? Annie Shuyan hasn't been idle on planet V for all these years. She has been working hard to improve the 1000 Shadow Foil. Meng Yan continued to explain, due to limited equipment, the poison in the 1000 Shadow Foil can't be completely eradicated. It still can't be used by humans. However, she thinks that Mr. Ting isn't an ordinary person and is immune to strange poisons. Therefore, it shouldn't be a big problem for you to use it, Mr. Ting. Ding Ming was overjoyed. No wonder Xu Yin said that she could guarantee that no one would recognize him when he went to Cypress Grove. It turned out that she had hidden such a good thing. Little Rascal also couldn't wait. Hurry up and try it. After opening the box, a nearly transparent piece of paper lay inside. It looked like a thin mask. It was so light in his hand that it was almost weightless. He rubbed it slightly with his fingers. It was soft and had a pliable texture. Following Meng Yan's instructions, Ding Meng gently placed the 1,000 shadow foil on his face. As soon as he did, he felt a burning pain on his face, as if he was being burned by a raging fire. However, as a large amount of origin energy gathered on his face, the burning sensation quickly faded and was replaced by a cool feeling. After this layer of film was stimulated by origin energy, it quickly melted on his face like water and then spread along the surface of his skin to the rest of his body. Ding Meng finally experienced the feeling of transformation. This 1,000 shadow foil was a completely different kind of strange energy. Under the control of his thoughts, his skin changed at a speed visible to the naked eye. It could make his skin shiny and glossy, but it could also make it rough and dim. Next, his muscles could also stretch and contract. The corners of his eyes, the bridge of his nose, lips, eyebrows, and the roots of his ears could all change according to his will. In just a few seconds, Ding Meng had completely transformed into a different person. Of course, this was also based on the people he had come into contact with. This person was none other than Wild Wolf, who had been sent flying by him with a single palm strike and black gold base. However, this modified 1,000 shadow foil still couldn't be compared to the genuine 1,000 shadow foil in the devouring world. It only changed Ding Meng's appearance. For example, his face was definitely the fierce face of Wild Wolf, and the wolf head tattoo on his chest was also imitated perfectly. However, his height, weight, DNA, and irises could not be changed. Ding Meng now looked like a miniature version of Wild Wolf with hair. However, in a place like Cypress Planet, where good and bad mix together, it was impossible to have too many advanced devices to scan your entire body. In general, this 1,000 shadow foil was definitely not comparable to Meng Yan's Phantom Fantasy technique. It was even inferior to Lan Bing's beauty retaining technique. However, this was enough. It would definitely not be a problem for him to blend into the ghost poison ship of the Extreme Pirate Force. Meng Yan had already thought of the excuse for entering the port for inspection. 3 mercenaries from Celestial Wolf, plus 1 mercenary from Surprise Raid. Ding Meng would be the eldest brother, Meng Yan would be the second sister, and as for the Four-Eyed Man and Mousy, they would be the 3rd and 4th brothers. The 4 of them were so poor that they couldn't live anymore. They pooled all their belongings to get 4 passes and were willing to go to Cypress Planet to try their luck. Soon, in the outer space of the Paradise Galaxy, the designated Heavenly Fate 1 spaceship appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The Four-Eyed Man couldn't believe his eyes. Oh my God, is this a freaking transport ship? Mousy was also dumbfounded. It looked a bit like a cargo ship. This was indeed a giant cargo ship. Its appearance was very old. It was in the shape of a disc. Its exterior was grayish-black and covered with armor patches. It was even more dilapidated than Ding Meng's ship. This kind of transport ship, named Giant Ring, was a mainstream cargo ship 200 years ago, but now it was basically an antique in the Federal Empire. This was something that couldn't be helped. This ship could pass through the barrier on a fixed route and was not attacked by other ships along the way. It was a public safety ship that was tacitly approved by the Extreme Pirate Force. They had to go in and out of this spaceship every 3 months. The connecting cabin of a Giant Ring spaceship could not be called a cabin at all. It was completely a large steel plate that extended from the inside of the spaceship. The small boats flying around were like flies. When they were notified, they would land, drop off the passengers, and leave. At the entrance far away from the tarmac was a checkpoint. A large number of soldiers in power armor were holding portable scanners and scanning the passengers boarding the ship. There were 3 entrances to the checkpoint, and in front of each entrance was a long line. These passengers were of all kinds. Judging from their attire, most of them were freelance mercenaries who had been active in outer space for a long time. Everyone wanted to go to Bogger Planet to make money. This was very understandable. Secondly, Most of them were dressed as businessmen. The leader of the group was an ordinary person who was dressed very formally and looked very elegant. However, behind him was a group of origin ability users. They were carrying large and small anti-gravity bags on their backs. Some of them were directly carrying metal boxes. There were even origin ability users pushing ancient handcarts with bags piled up like a mountain. They were probably all filled with goods to be sold. Next, Ding Meng opened his eyes because he saw a group of young people gathered at entrance number 1. This group of people was talking and laughing happily. Their expressions seemed to be very excited. Among them, there were couples holding hands very lovingly. Judging from their unique uniforms and logos, these people were all students. Ding Meng was dumbfounded. What's wrong with students nowadays? How dare they go to such a dangerous place? Chapter 219. Although Ding Meng was surprised, Meng Yin was used to it. She explained in a low voice, "Big brother, these students of the Holy Grail Federation must have official citizenship. They will be very safe after entering. Most people will not provoke them. Young people are very curious and want to travel. Cypress Planet is a mining area with a strange terrain." Ding Meng nodded and said, "So that's how it is." At this moment, someone suddenly shouted from behind, "Come, come, come, old and young, come over here. Fresh, fresh, cheap, 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 cheap. We provide fresh and cheap rooms. Friends who need it, please come over here. Your mood is our expression. Your thoughts are our methods. Quick, come over here and take a look." There was a man in the line who turned on his wristband and raised a holographic screen. He was hawking at the passengers in the queue. The holographic screen showed rooms with different facilities. This time, Ding Meng did not need to ask. Meng Yin took the initiative to explain, "The conditions on the spaceship are simple and crude. We only provide limited accommodation. If you don't want to be disturbed, you can buy the right to use these rooms, but the price is very expensive." This kind of occasion would definitely not lack the combination of the four-eyed man and the Russian. The four-eyed man had already jumped up and said, "How much is your room?" The man wearing the wristband looked like a thief, and when he smiled, he gave off the feeling of a profiteer. "Brother, the rooms on this ship are really good. Look at your tasteful suit and your pair of zebra brand shoes. Cough, cough. Sorry, it's sandals. Brother, with one look, I can tell that you're a boss with a high status. How about a luxurious and invincible presidential suite with a view? Is this your first time on Cypress Planet? Then I'll give you a 20% discount. You can check in now and check out later. It's only 400 star coins. It's very cost-effective." The four-eyed man stretched his neck and looked at the holographic screen. He almost vomited blood. Hey, brother, is this the luxurious and invincible viewing presidential suite?" The holographic screen showed that it was indeed a suite, but there were only 2 rooms. The total area was less than 20 square meters. There was nothing else except a small bed and 2 long wooden benches. Damn, this room dared to be called the luxurious and invincible viewing presidential suite. Are you *King crazy about money? The man fiddled with the screen, spittle flying everywhere. "Brother, how could I deceive a customer? Come, take a look. A normal room is only 8 square meters and doesn't even have a bed. But now you have 2 rooms and stools. When a client comes, you can even invite him to sit down and slowly discuss business. Look, there's even a window here. When the ship flies to the center of the barrier, of course you can enjoy the view. Others can only squat in the sealed hall, but you can always enjoy it. I'm not lying, am I?" Four Eyes took a closer look and wanted to faint again. There was a palm-sized piece of crystal glass embedded in the wall. How could this be called a window? Are you trying to make me angry on purpose? Is there a better room? Mao Zi came over. The man's eyes lit up again. "Yo, this brother looks like a big boss. You have good taste. Come. This is our ship's latest offering, a great value meal that can help you resist loneliness. Why don't you take a look?" Mao Zi's expression was not much better than Four Eyes. He also wanted to vomit blood. This meal was also a suite, but it was not much better than the presidential suite. There was an additional marble coffee table, and the small bed had become a double bed. How much is this room? Ding Meng and Meng Yin also walked over. When the man saw that business had come to him, he became even more enthusiastic. 600 star coins for a set. This meal has been selling like hotcakes recently. It's in short supply. It's a first-class environment and first-class service. Your satisfaction is guaranteed. The customer's temper is our fortune, and the customer's request is our pursuit. Four Eyes rolled his eyes. Oh, sorry, my ears are itchy. I didn't hear you clearly. There's even service in this kind of room? The man lowered his head and revealed a strange smile. He pouted his lips. Look over there. Do you see it? Four Eyes turned his head, and his eyes immediately widened. This was because he saw a large group of beautiful women in the center of Q3. All of them were gorgeously dressed and radiant. They were laughing and laughing. At this moment, the attention of the surrounding people was basically on this group of beautiful women. The man's smile became even more strange. He quietly stretched out 2 fingers and made a V sign. He shook it and used a voice as small as a mosquito to whisper. Bosses, who have you taken a fancy to? I'll communicate with them for you. Then, you can communicate with them yourselves. If you want to have a deep conversation, it's 200 star coins once, 350 star coins twice, and 800 star coins for an all-night tour. We'll discuss the price in person. It's absolutely worth it. I guarantee your satisfaction. Do you want a membership card? You can get 1 free for every 10 purchases. Four Eyes immediately became excited. Mousie was also very excited. It really is a great value meal that can help you resist loneliness. May I know your name, brother? The man chuckled. What's so great about it? Brother, I'm just trying to make a living on this Heaven's Fate spaceship. It's all thanks to you bosses taking care of my business. This is my name card. I'll have to trouble you bosses to scan it. His identity information appeared on the screen. Liao Zhang, Top Wind Food and Entertainment International Company, Limited Chairman, General Manager, Sales Director, Planning Manager, and Chief Designer. Awesome. Four Eyes was immediately convinced. So it's Director Liao. Let's be friends. Sure. Liao Zhang was also straightforward. Do the 2 bosses still want this suite? Mao Zi rushed to say, of course, we want to order. He did not say the word order because he noticed that Meng Yin was coldly looking at him in Four Eyes. Her face was so cold that it could freeze. Cough, cough. Mao Zi coughed violently. However, Director Liao, we've been having some cash flow problems recently. I feel that this package, cough, cough, isn't a bit expensive? That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. Liao Zhang fiercely patted his chest. Get a great God membership card, 40% off. It's simply tailor-made for the 2 of you. The customer's eyes are our sunshine. Meng Yin could not stand it anymore and coldly interrupted him. Are there any better rooms? She knew Ding Meng's habits. He had always liked peace and quiet and did not like to be disturbed. He definitely wanted a room. However, Liao Zhang's room was really too shabby. It was even worse than the restrooms on her blazing shark spaceship. In her mind, it was fine for her to suffer a little, but she definitely could not let Mr. Ting stay in a room that was similar to a bathroom. Liao Zhang's spirit suddenly shook again. He fiercely gave a thumbs up. Sis, your eyes are really good. Our company has also recently launched a huge suite for health, food, love, and action. It's absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. If you're not satisfied, you can beat me to death. The room this time was indeed not bad. It was a separate suite with a standard decoration. It was equipped with an induction cabin, a nutrition cabin, a medical cabin, a storage cabinet, a cloakroom, a bathroom, and other facilities. All of these were well equipped. Liao Zhang stretched out 2 fingers. Brother, sister, there are only 2 of these suites left. Hurry up, it's very popular. How much is it? Ding Meng finally spoke. Liao Zhang smiled and said, it's very cheap. Only 1,800 star credits. How about it? Do you want it? A voice suddenly sounded from behind. We want it. We want both. He turned around and saw the group of students at entrance 1 walking over. The one who spoke was a boy with a strong nasal voice. The arrogance on his face could not be concealed. Liao Zhang's smile seemed a little forced. The people he wanted to sell were not these students. The reason was very simple. These people were very likely to be Federation citizens. There might even be third or second-class citizens among them. If he introduced those value-added services to them, he would get into trouble if he was not careful. The identity of Federation citizens might not mean much in places like mercenary groups, but in the area of Bogger Planet, it was quite a deterrent. The main reason was that there was an order from the Extreme Bandit Corps in this place. Give preferential treatment to Federation citizens. This meant that if there were no special circumstances, it was best not to provoke them. If it was convenient, it would be convenient. Thus, when this boy spoke, Liao Zhang felt a little unnatural. However, the four-eyed boy and Mousy did not know this. Mousy had already stepped forward and said casually, "Student, we came first." The boy ignored him and said proudly to Liao Zhang, "2 sweets for 1,000 star credits. You can decide for yourself. We are students from the Federation's Starlight University." Even Ding Meng had heard of this school before. This was a famous school in Blue Pole Star City of the Federation's Blue Moon planet. This school was famous for specially cultivating origin energy warriors. The threshold to enter was the warrior level. Not to mention the difficulty of advancing from an origin ability user to an origin energy warrior. Just the cost was not something an ordinary family could afford. Thus, the students who were able to enter were either wealthy or respectable. It was a typical aristocratic school. In the Holy Grail Federation, Starlight University was highly valued by the upper echelons. In the history of the Federation, many famous experts had come from this university. Even these outer space refugees knew of its influence. When the boy opened his mouth, it was nothing more than throwing money at them. At the same time, he was using his citizenship to dissuade Mousy. Mousy could not take this provocation. His eyes widened. So what if it's Starlight University? Is this Starlight University? A bunch of brats. Are you still students? You don't even know how to smoke, and you still want to mingle in society? The boy was speechless. What kind of logic was this? What did smoking have to do with booking a room? Are you sure you want to compete with us? The boy's eyes widened. Are you sure you want to compete with third-class citizens of the Federation? Mousy could not be bothered with him. TSK, what third-class and fourth-class citizen? Come, do you dare to smoke a cigarette? I think you don't have the guts. You don't even know how to smoke. You're worse off than me, an interstellar refugee. For eyes, come and root the mountain. Oh, sorry, my memory isn't good. It's Red Pagoda Mountain. This godly logic clearly angered the boy. However, he was also a little depressed. He did not know how to smoke, but how did this hot-tempered guy know? Mousy successfully swindled a Red Pagoda Mountain. After lighting it up, he was naturally refreshed. He turned his head proudly. "Big brother, don't you think I'm right?" Ding Meng ignored Mousy. His gaze was fixed behind the boy. This was because at this moment, another voice sounded from behind the boy. "Forget it, Ahua. We're here to travel. Don't quarrel with others." Director Liao, it shouldn't be a problem for us to book a suite for 1,800 star coins, right? We won't make things difficult for you. Chapter 220. The voice was still that of a man. It was very sharp and thin, and it sounded very pure. However, it did not have Ahua's arrogance. It had a gentle and polite tone. The person who spoke quickly walked forward. He was also a young man, and he looked like he was only a few years older than Ding Meng. He was very handsome, and there was a hint of elegance in his handsomeness. His clothes were very ordinary, and it was not the student uniform of Starlight University. Instead, it was a simple black striped sportswear. His face was a little pale, and it was naturally a young and childish face. However, it was this very ordinary student that gave others a different feeling. This was definitely not a child raised by an ordinary family. He seemed very calm and polite. He walked forward and extended his hand to Ding Meng. "I'm sorry, sir. My companion is very impatient. Please don't take offense. I apologize on his behalf." He did not apologize to the Russians, but went to Ding Meng. Meng Yan, who was beside them, could see that this boy was definitely not as simple as he looked. No wonder Mr. Ting kept staring at him. "It's okay. We only want one room." Ding Ming also extended his hand politely, and the two of them shook hands gently. This time, Meng Yin could not tell. The moment the two of them shook hands, both of their hands trembled slightly. The trembling was very small, but the speed was not something that the people around them could detect. Liao Zhang saw that the problem was solved, and he naturally smiled. Brothers, if you pay now, you don't have to go through the security check. I'll take you there directly. The leader of the security check is my brother. Farais was happy. Damn, there's such a privilege. Then, that set meal. How about we book 2 more rooms? No problem. Liao Zhang could not wait to switch to the trading system. While they were paying, Ahua, on the other hand, was somewhat dissatisfied. Brother Imo, why do you have to apologize to these lowly refugees? They don't look like good people. The person he called Brother Imo was the boy who had just apologized. Facing Ahua's complaints, he only smiled slightly. Huazai, when we go out, safety first. You have to control your impatience. Uncle and Annie told me to look after you before we left. Huazai was clearly still unconvinced. We are students of Starlight University. How could we be afraid of these interstellar refugees? At this time, the four-eyed man had already paid the bill. Liao Zhang led Ding Meng and the others directly to entrance number 1. It was not until Ding Meng and the others disappeared from sight that Brother Imo said in a low voice, "Don't underestimate the people living in outer space. There are experts among them." Tisk, Huazai snorted disdainfully at this argument. What kind of expert could there be here? They're all half-baked. Along the way, I haven't felt any energy fluctuations. Brother Mo's gaze was fixed on entrance number 1. He seemed to be mumbling to himself. Modesty brings benefits, but complacency invites harm. Huazai, take care of Lily and the rest. After boarding the ship, it's best if they stay in the room and don't run around. There might be experts on this ship. Andy was still dissatisfied. What kind of expert can there be? Really? Brother Imo smiled bitterly and shook his head. Actually, what he really wanted to say was, the person who shook hands with me just now was definitely an expert hiding his strength. It wasn't because he had sensed Ding Meng's energy fluctuations. There weren't many passengers on the ship who were circulating their energy. Everyone kept a low profile and didn't want to cause trouble. However, Ding Meng had been staring at him the entire time. Sometimes, the senses of those who were on the same path were very strange. It was very difficult for them to notice someone who wasn't a threat, but once there was a threat, they would naturally have an instinctive reaction. From Brother Mo's point of view, although Ding Meng's appearance was repulsive, he was just too calm. His calmness was completely different from the crowd waiting for the security check. Although those people were also calm, that was only on the surface. Ding Meng's calmness, on the other hand, was a steady and cold temperament that radiated from the inside out. This kind of temperament was something he had only sensed when the instructors at Starlight University were guiding him in his daily training. However, this fierce-looking guy was actually giving him the same feeling. This guy was probably a mercenary. Logically speaking, if a normal mercenary was really skilled, there was no way they would appear in a place like this. Thus, he had taken the initiative to apologize and shake hands with the intention of testing the waters. He shook hands with a slightly trembling hand. Anyone who didn't know what was going on would think that he was very cold and that his hands were shaking. Who would have thought that Ding Meng would immediately cooperate with him at the same speed? This meant that the other party was at least someone who practiced martial arts diligently. Furthermore, he was able to keep up with Brother Mo's pace. It would be strange if such a person was weak. While Brother Mo was surprised, how could Ding Meng, who was in the passageway, not be surprised? The spaceship was very clearly divided into different areas. The control hall and the energy warehouse were definitely places that the passengers would not be able to come into contact with. The other areas were the rest area, the dining area, the entertainment area, the payment area, and the VIP area. The rest area was an empty super hall. There was nothing, not even a single chair. The passengers simply sat down on the old steel plates. There were groups of people here and there. It was dark and noisy, and the scene was very chaotic. The spaceship also provided food and drink. Of course, it was mainly nutrient solutions. Nutrient solutions with a capacity of 500 plus deca came in a box. They were definitely not sold individually. The price was 10 star credits. It was extremely expensive. The entertainment area was naturally an enclosed hall where one could use the sensor cabin alone. The price was also very high, 5 star credits for 1 hour of use. The key was that there were very few of them. There were only 5 sensor cabins in total. Looking at the models, they were all ancient models. There were many places that were old and broken. The outer protective cover also seemed to be stained with oil. It was simply impossible to look at it directly. The VIP area was naturally the accommodation area that Liao Zhang had contracted. In fact, it was the private resting rooms that were usually used on ordinary spaceships. However, this giant ring was an ancient giant ship. Even the steel plates on the walls of the VIP area were moldy. There was a rancid smell everywhere. Fortunately, Ding Meng and his group were not ordinary people. If it had been anyone else, they would have probably vomited after smelling the stench. As he was a big customer, Liao Zhang not only personally led the way, but also tried his best to curry favor with him. Brother Wolf, if you need anything, you can call me at any time. Our company can definitely make you feel at home. I'm not bragging, but you can't even experience our value-added services in the Federation. Their legs are especially long, their hair is especially dense, and they feel especially good to the touch. How should I say it? They give special love to special people like you. Your loneliness can't escape their eyes. This was a detailed explanation that the four-eyed man and the Russian were happy to hear. However, this time, they were ruthlessly interrupted by Meng Yan. Shut up. Do you think our big brother is the kind of person who can't find a woman? Definitely not. Liao Zhang suddenly puffed out his chest and said seriously, Brother Wolf is so outstanding and handsome. He's even better than the big star Han Yiwu from the Federation. Brother Wolf definitely won't be interested in our value-added services. Cough, cough, but we'll be interested. The four-eyed man and the Russian winked at each other. Their voices were so soft that they could not be heard. We'll contact you later. Yes, yes, yes. Liao Zhang quickly excused himself. Brother, sister, you guys take your time to rest. Let me know if you need anything. I'll take my leave first. As soon as he left, Ding Meng said to Meng Yan, second brother, go stay in the big room. Give me one of the rooms for third brother and fourth brother. When he said this, the other three people were stunned. Meng Yan could not help but ask, Big brother, why don't you use it? Ding Meng said indifferently, I don't need it. You take a good rest. Meng Yan could understand what he meant. Ding Meng wanted her to use the induction cabin to train on her own. After all, if she really wanted to follow in Ding Meng's footsteps, she had to be strong enough. In fact, Meng Yan had already guessed a thing or two from Flying Star City to Planet V4. Ding Meng might have practiced some secret technique that allowed him to increase his strength without the induction cabin. This was most likely Ding Meng's secret. Therefore, it was best for her to follow Ding Meng's instructions and keep the things that needed to be kept secret. If Ding Meng did not stay in the big room, then the Russian and the four-eyed man could only stay in the double room. It would be awkward for them to enjoy the value-added service. Could it be that 2 men and 2 women would squeeze in a small bed? The bed would probably be shaken to pieces. However, this was Ding Meng's request, so the 2 of them had no choice but to comply. Just as the 4 of them were about to leave, Ding Meng stopped Meng Yan. Did you notice the boy at the entrance? Meng Yan frowned. The student who shook hands with you? Ding Meng nodded. His expression was somewhat serious. Be careful. Don't get into a conflict with him. Why? Meng Yan was puzzled. Ding Meng whispered, he's an expert. An expert? In Meng Yan's mind, the only people who could make Ding Meng call experts were people on the same level as Xu Yin and Ren Tianluan. That person is just a student? Ding Meng sighed slightly. The frequency of his hand shaking is extremely high, and the amplitude is stable. It's about 15 times per second. The calluses on the web between his thumb and forefinger are about 1 centimeter thick. These numbers were secretly calculated by Little Rascal, but Ding Meng believed that Meng Yan would definitely understand. Such stable and high-frequency shaking proved that this person's hand speed was extremely fast. The calluses on the web between his thumb and forefinger were so thick, proving that he was used to using cold weapons. His attainments in martial arts had reached a certain level. Adding these two together, one could basically infer that the student who shook hands with Ding Meng was most likely a light-speed origin ability user. And Ding Meng judged that this person was an expert, at least on the level of an advanced warrior. However, wasn't this person a bit too young? At such a young age, could it be that he was a top student at Starlight University? Or was he a genius from some sect or clan in the Federation? Meng Yan couldn't help but smile bitterly. Why would such a person come to a place like this for no reason? Ding Meng lightly said, "They're here for a vacation." Meng Yan finally understood. Most of these students might be here to visit Cypress Planet out of curiosity, but this person was definitely not. His purpose for this trip was definitely not as simple as a vacation. It was indeed necessary to be wary of him. Meng Yan slightly lowered her head. "Thank you for the reminder, big brother." Ding Meng nodded. "All right, go. Take the time to rest." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.